this one. It sounds like the other one's not around 20. She'll just turn the road. I have a bit of a,
End of February?
you know, the attention span of elementary,
Leave your
the
baby.
attention span of elementary people.
That's what we talking.
My cousin's a leak February 20.
Oh,
Yes.
I thought I was.
She reminds us too.
Yeah.
She said,
No, ma'am.
"Steve," she said, "We're all sitting here having fun." I'm like, oh my God.
Pay attention who took it.
I did. I said, oh, my 3 younger children, my wife.
Remember watching me, they were just
Oh my God. Oh.
That's how we all, when I see a picture of us arriving versus the end, it's amazing.
It's amazing.
I mean, just the physical aspect of it. Not to mention the emotional.
I always wanted to.
Yeah, it's not pretty.
You are?
I came back and
Thank you.
And it was a great experience for us. I'm remembering.
I said, where did mine? He just went, not a word.
Yeah, I don't agree.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this regular monthly meeting of Bedford County School Board for December 14th, 2023 to order. Ms. Johnson, will you please call the roll?
Mrs. Kirby?
Here.
Mr. Hill?
Here.
Mr. Daniels?
Here.
Mrs. Hairston?
Here.
Mr. Holbrook?
Here.
Mr. Nelms?
Here.
Dr. Mealy?
Here.
Madam Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you, ma'am. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved, Madam Chairman.
I have a motion by Dr. Mealy. Do I have a second?
Second.
I heard from 2 people. Second by Ms. Harrison. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The agenda is approved. We'll move on to the presentation of colors. Now, if you'd please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Present, arms. Order, arms. Post.
You may be seated. Thank you very much. That's a wonderful addition to our meetings and an honor to our country. Now, if you would, please join me in a moment of silence. During this moment, I would like for you to remember Mr. Jordan Clark and his family in your prayers due to the loss of their infant son. Thank you very much. Moving on to item 2.01, school board presentations. Dr. Burris?
Yes, Madam Chair.
In our ongoing efforts to keep the board members and our community informed about our strategic work in each of our schools, we're pleased to welcome Mr. Andy Bliss tonight, principal of Goodview Elementary School, and Mrs. Darcy Parker, principal of our host site tonight, Stanton River High School. They'll each be sharing information about their school's accomplishments and the goals of their school's continuous improvement plans, and we are leading off with Mr. Bliss.
Thank you, Dr. Bergen. Good evening, members of the school board. My name is Andy Bliss, and I am the principal at Goodview. This is my first year there, and I would like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to share a little bit about our school, which is the home of the Grizzlies. We are a Title I school that serves students in preschool through 5th grade. This fall, our school's leadership team has worked to analyze available data, identify strengths and areas of improvement, and develop 3 SMART goals to support our students' academic growth this year. Coming into this year, Thank you. You're fine. Coming into this year, we want to continue to build off some of our recent academic successes from last year's SOLs. These include our improved performance in science. Our SOL score went up 20 points from the 22 school year to last spring, and our scores that went above 80% in both reading and math based on our growth point results last spring. We have a very supportive PTA, which sponsors several events that have become popular with our community each year. This January, we'll be holding our first ever winter carnival for families. In February, the school will once again hold a Valentine dance for students, while in March, families will be invited to a bingo for books where students can win free books. Those are some examples of last year's dance and bingo for books. One of the things our PTA had worked very hard through last school year and into this summer this year was to raise funds for a new digital sign by the main entrance. This allows us to share relevant school information on a regular basis with our community and has been in place since early October. Now I'd like to share some information about our 3 goals that the leadership team has developed as our main focus this year for our school. The first area of focus is positive school climate. A review of our discipline data from the 22-23 school year indicated that we had a problem with student discipline issues. Data showed we had more disciplinary incidents and out-of-school suspensions than any other elementary school in Bedford. As a result, we prioritized building and maintaining a positive school climate as our #1 goal this year. We've emphasized recognizing positive student behavior by reaching out to parents each week with positive phone calls or emails, and have made over 250+ contacts so far this year. In addition, as principal, I recognize students that have been found to be great Grizzlies in the parent newsletter that goes out to families. And we also have what's called the Grizzly Goodie program, which notes student positive referrals that they can use to cash in for rewards. Instructionally, our counselor has taken the lead in educating staff and students in implementing the zones of regulation, which helps students in the school utilize common language and indicators when it comes to recognizing where students are in regards to their mental and emotional health at any given time. We also work closely with our mental health and sport team and our therapeutic day treatment team, which is paired with our partner through National Counseling Group to meet the needs of our students. And finally, we've stressed to our staff that our staff needs to be actively supervising our students at all times. This includes being visible and accessible to students in hallways during transitions, when students are entering and exiting the building, and outside at recess, as we found those are some areas of concern based on behavior last year. Our first goal for the CSEP is our discipline goal, which states that the number of out-of-school suspensions will reduce by 25% to 45 incidents or fewer by the end of this school year when compared to the number last year, which was 60. Thus far, if you compare our numbers, we had 19 students last year that contributed to 60 incidents of suspension. Thus far, we have 8 students and only 13 incidents of suspension, so we are well above pace. This indicates also that our Tier 1 and our Tier 2 interventions are working, as only 1.2% of the students at Goodview have committed an offense this year that has led to a suspension. Our second area of focus is in the area of attendance. Students cannot learn if they're missing school constantly or are chronically absent. Our level of chronic absenteeism has been growing over the last 3 years instead of sliding back to pre-COVID levels as we had hoped. We are addressing this need in 3 ways. First, we're working to educate and inform parents as to the benefits of regular school attendance, as well as the drawbacks of spotty attendance. We've done this via information shared in the principal's newsletter, and parent advisory meetings that I've held after school with families. We are also working closely with our family support worker and the county's BEST team to address truancy issues promptly and hopefully address any underlying issues or struggles families may be facing that are preventing them from getting their students to school. During the second semester, we also have a series of monthly attendance calendar checks and rewards and incentives given to students who meet specific targeted attendance goals. As you can see here, our percentage of students who are chronically absent has grown since 18.9% in 21-22 to almost 23% last year. That's almost a quarter of our students who are missing more than 10% of the school day. Therefore, our goal this year is to get down to the benchmark, which is no more than 15% of the total school population to have missed more than 10% of the school day. School year, excuse me. Make sure it doesn't skip a date here. Thank you. Our next area of focus, excuse me, wrong page, skipped a slide. Our next area of focus is improving our primary reading outcomes for students. Our PALS data, as shown on this slide, clearly indicates that for the last 3 years in grades K through 2, Goodview students have scored anywhere between 15 to 30 points below the division average, and the number of students meeting their grade level benchmarks in the fall. That's simply not acceptable, and it needs to change. This slide clearly shows why we have concerns about our students' progress in reading in the primary grades. It shows that nearly half of students in grades K through 3 are not meeting their fall benchmark in PALS. Division averages are nearly 20 points higher than our student scores across the board. Recognizing this as a concern, one intervention is that our grade level holds monthly grade level meetings during which data is disaggregated and specific approaches for struggling students, including targeted interventions, are discussed and then implemented immediately afterwards. Our strategies and interventions employed to increase student success include, by using Title I funds, we've added both an instructional coach and a second reading specialist to provide additional reading support, so that now any student that was identified under fall PALS assessment for grades K through 3 or the IXL diagnostic that needs extra support in grades 4 through 5 are also getting support during the day. We have made it also a priority to maximize ALT, academic learning time, each day. To this end, the master schedule was adjusted to give primary teachers as much uninterrupted instructional time as possible during the language arts block. In addition, the administrative team continues to collaborate with teachers to emphasize the importance of maximizing ALT each day by doing things like transitioning in from activities as efficiently as possible, minimizing instructional time lost, and going to lunch, resource classes, etc. This continues to be a concern and a problem, but that is improving. This slide demonstrates the number of Tier 2 and Tier 3 students that have been identified by PALS and by IXL. And IXL, if you look at the Tier 2 interventions here, it shows that we have only 35% of our fourth graders on level, only 37% of our fifth graders on level. A total of almost 60% in both need some form of intervention. So our third goal for reading is that students in grades K through 3 will decrease the number of Tier 2 and Tier 3 students identified by PALS by 25%. Students in grades 4 and 5 will decrease the number of Tier 2 and Tier 3 students also by 25%. These 3 school goals have been shared with all the faculty at Goodview, and the final continuous school improvement plan has been posted on our website for all stakeholders to access. Our leadership team will meet regularly to review all relevant strategies involving these goals throughout the year to adjust new approaches as needed. Thank you for this opportunity to showcase some of Goodview's celebrations and goals. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions? Ms. Harrison?
Okay. Mr. Bliss, thank you for such an excellent report. There's so many things that you have and your staff have a right to celebrate, you know, the gains and successes that you've made thus far. But I'm really excited about your parent advisory meeting that
Yes,
you
ma'am.
made mention of. So I'm just curious, how often do they meet?
We do, once a month. We didn't do it for November because of the holiday, obviously. To be very honest, it's been slow going. When I started at Big Island, we got a handful and it kind of grew and grew and grew. We're still growing. I mean, I went from 1 to 3 to 5. It's not a huge number, but it is exciting to hear that they are taking some of the things back to their colleagues and their peers and you know, at the soccer games and basketball games. And I mean, just to give an example, and it's a small example, but in 1 week right before Thanksgiving, we had some families that came in, the students were only there a couple hours, they signed out, and the parents said, well, normally we go away for the entire week of Thanksgiving and they just miss all the school days, but you know, we tried to get them in for as much as we can, and we looked at our trip schedule so they could be here as much as they could, so they get some time and it didn't count against the school absence-wise. We've also had parents that have come forward that have said that they didn't realize it was as big of a deal if their child had a medical appointment and they just missed the whole day. And now they're making sure they either come in for part of the day and then leave or return afterwards. And so it's small steps with that, but I think that we're beginning to see some traction.
Great, fantastic. Well, I'm looking forward to hearing wonderful gains that your school's going to make under your leadership, so thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. Daniels?
Mr. Bliss, thank you for that. On goal number 2,
Yes, sir.
what has that progress looked like so far this year compared to last year? Have you seen a measurable drop in absenteeism?
It's difficult to say at this point, Mr. Daniels, because, you know, with the chronic being 10%, we had, at the end of the first quarter, I want to say 12 students who have already missed that many days. Really, to me, the third quarter is going to be the tipping point. We can take up to 71 students to get to and stay under our 15%. We have a number that are in the 10 to 12 range. Now, we did have about a flu, and we did have about a COVID come through. So we're seeing that. Unfortunately, to be very transparent, we have, and I'm sure many other schools do, we have a core number of students who have repetitive truancy problems. I do think the BEST team is starting to hopefully get some traction on that. My goal, honestly, this year is to try to obviously work with those groups, but work with the ones who, as mentioned earlier, might take an extra vacation, might take the whole day for a medical appointment. At this point, we are on pace to reduce our level, but if you extrapolate this out to the end of the year, we're not quite to 15%.
Okay.
I want to say it was around 18 if I just roughly doubled where we are now since the semester ends tomorrow.
Yep.
So gains, but not where we'd like to be.
That's okay. You just got to keep working, keep educating. And I think Dr. Woodford had mentioned that getting additional funding to combat this, right? On goal number 3 for the PALS data, so
Yes.
50% are meeting, right? That's what that said.
Yes, sir.
Of that 50%, do we break down in any way, of that 50%, who's like passing and who's excelling? Like, what is the goal, just to pass, or do we identify students that are really kicking butt?
That's a good question. For PALS, basically, PALS is a measure to identify students that need intervention. So yes, I can go back and pull the data, and I could tell you how many children are reading 1 to 2 grade levels above. Absolutely can do that. It's not typically what we do with that. That data goes to the teachers, and then we use that with our grouping within the classrooms.
Okay.
And then also, that is really the first jumping off point many times for our early intervention for potential tag referrals and gifted referrals later on.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Dr. Mealy?
Hi, Mr. Bliss, and thank you as well for that really wonderful presentation, and congratulations. I agree with Ms. Harrison. You have a lot to celebrate, especially in the area of science, and your staff and your students. You know, everybody works to get those scores. So thank you for that. And I will also chime in about the Parent Advisory Committee. I think that's or meetings. I think those are really great. Since you are a Title I school, can you just speak briefly to what you believe Title I brings to your school that you would not maybe ordinarily have if you didn't have those funds?
Yes, ma'am. I mean, the clearest is obviously with the reading. I mean, it's absolutely, we have so many students identified based on the PALS and based on other reading assessments. If we had the allotted staff, and this is not in any way to knock, HR, the school division, the board, we couldn't serve them all. We just can't. There is such a crisis in the number of students that are coming in that are that are below level, and that intensive intervention, particularly K through 3. I mean, I know, and I'm sure you're familiar with studies that they really, truly need to be reading on grade level by grade 3 to be successful. And we're not there, but by adding this additional staff, we've gotten so many extra small groups, we've gotten so many more avenues to pursue. we're doing RTIs with SCT. We're doing RTIs with even students that have, for example, we often have students that have speech disabilities, but we suspect it might be more than speech. And sometimes if you don't have the staff for that, it's very difficult to get in and do the RTIs and intervene to try to tease that out and see if they need a full evaluation for, say, special education, for SLD versus just speech. And that extra manpower. The other thing is the coach, having been, our coach, Ms. Pennington, is a long-time member of the Goodview community, very well respected, respected by her peers, respected by the families. So when she is going in and she models lessons, we have a lot of new teachers. We have teachers who it's their first year. And so when she goes in and models a lesson, you know it's going to be an exceptional lesson, and they can pick up a lot from that. Without Title I money, I don't have a coach. I don't have a second reading specialist. I don't have a reading paraprofessional. We have all of that because of Title I money. So, you know, as much as, to be very transparent, I'm not thrilled right now with where we are with some of that primary reading. I shudder to think where we'd be if we didn't have it.
Thank you so much for that. Can you also speak to, in the same vein, about your IDS intervention, especially since you had like 19 suspensions last year? You only, at this point, have 8 this year.
Well, with IDS,
Is it-
yes, ma'am. With IDS, we've had them kind of on call for a couple of our high-frequency kiddos, and then those kiddos left. And then as nature doesn't like a vacuum, we've had other kiddos come in, and they are now coming out to look at kind of our second wave of really high-frequency kiddos. So we've been in communication with Ms. Faust. She's been a very good resource for us. And direct intervention with children, we haven't gotten that with the children we had because, again, they moved. But they are actually coming out this week to look at some kiddos and move on from there. Our day treatment program started with 1 student and is up to, I want to say, 6, and we've got another several in the approval pipeline, and that's proven to be helpful as well.
Well, just one more thing.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you consider the discipline or your chronic absenteeism to be your most challenging issue at the moment, or are they neck and neck?
I would say school-wide, it's the absenteeism. School-wide, it's the absenteeism. The discipline is intense in certain spots and in a couple of grade levels, but overall, it's the same small group of children that are really struggling that we're trying to help. And unfortunately, maybe for that classroom where that child's dysregulated at times, it's difficult to manage. But, you know, you might have an entire grade level, they're not having that problem. So I would say it's the chronic absenteeism. And I also would say that for another reason, to be very honest, and that is that discipline, I think, as an administrator, I feel personally, I have a much larger ability to intervene and assist with. Chronic absenteeism, I can bring the tools to my disposal. I can't go to a child and get them out of bed. I mean, I can't bring them in. We can work with the team. We can work with our county support, with our support worker, who's wonderful. We can do a lot of things, but outside hours is outside hours, and it's difficult sometimes to bridge that gap, especially if we don't have good relationships, possibly with families. So I would say that it's a chronic absenteeism. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much, and please pass my very best to your staff, and congratulations for the successes you are experiencing.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. Hill?
Mr. Bliss, you may not know this since you've been there a year. Maybe staff can help if you don't know. But how many years has this school been labeled Title I?
That I could not tell you. I will say, Mr. Hicks, that I was at Stewartsville in 2007, 2008, and they were then, but I don't know if they came out of it in the meantime. That's about as far back as I could tell you.
Does anybody have that information?
I don't. I know that it's been Title I since I started teaching, which would have been 29 years ago.
So for 29 years, that school has received additional funding outside of what schools who are not labeled.
We're not identifying, correct?
Okay. At least 29 years. Okay. And then Mr. Bliss, based on scores from last year, I would assume that we had some students that were retained in certain grades. Can you help me on the percentage of students who would have remained in their previous grade based on scores and their overall?
I can give you a rough guess because I wasn't involved in the retention process back then, so I don't know how many children would have been, especially if they're being successful this year because they may not have popped on my radar. I can say that I'm aware of roughly a half dozen, so that would put it, just over 1%, but I couldn't tell you the exact number, Mr. Hill, because those meetings, like I said, were held with Ms. Morris, and I was not there then.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any further questions? Okay, thank you, Mr. Bliss.
Thank you, ma'am.
Ms. Parker?
Good evening, members of the board. I am Darcy Parker, principal at Stanton River High School. At Stanton River High School, our vision is to challenge all students with a rigorous and diverse academic program to exceed their own expectations in a safe environment that fosters respect, self-discipline, tolerance, and social development. Our mission is to provide a foundation that will allow our students the best opportunity for a lifetime of success. Our vision and mission align directly with BCPS vision, building citizens, promoting success. This evening, I will share an overview of Stanton River High School's celebrations, continuous school improvement goals, historical data, and school-wide initiatives for academic improvement. As the administration and leadership team analyzed the data, many successes from the previous school year were evident. Stanton River remains fully accredited by the Virginia Department of Education. Math pass rates improved dramatically from 45% in the 2021-22 school year to 83% in the 2022-2023 school year. All achievement gap groups in math are at Tier 1. English overall increased from 73 to 82% in 22-23. The English pass rate for students with disabilities also improved from Tier 3 to Tier 2. I will address concerns in science and history scores later. Our dropout and chronic absenteeism rates decreased for the 22-23 school year. Our extracurricular and co-curricular programs at Stanton River continued to excel, winning numerous state and local awards, notable in FFA, band, and sports teams like wrestling. Stanton River High School is celebrating 60 years this year since the first graduating class of 1964 came through the doors when they were opened in October 1963. The first graduating class had 79 students. Since last year, Stanton River has graduated 10,251 students. We have already celebrated with alums participating in football game coin tosses, reminiscent tours of campus, and gatherings. We plan to continue showcasing our alum athletes at events throughout the year. We are proud of our media arts and yearbook staff who have been an enormous help in sharing events with our community throughout different forms of media. We were able to outfit the beginnings of a dance studio for our students to partake in the first dance course offered at Stanton River High School. Our counseling department has created activities and events like Mindful Mondays for staff and students to practice positive self-awareness. Junior and senior students were able to experience a simulated trauma presentation and mock vehicle accident scenario to provide education and awareness about distracted driving. We are incredibly thankful for local support of donated items from our parents, staff, and local businesses, particularly Grand Furniture at Valley View and Lowe's in Bedford, to outfit our Eagles Roost staff room, including a private new mother area. At this time, I would like to share with you our historical data and school improvement goals for targeted areas. As I mentioned, we have had growth in our overall English and math pass rates. Our overall history and science scores are a concern we continue to focus on. As we review historical and current academic data, it is important to understand that the 1920 school year results are unavailable due to the closure of schools and the cancellation of state assessments. The 2021 school year results reflect reduced student participation in these assessments due to COVID-19. The wide variations in participation rates and learning conditions should be considered when reviewing the 2021 school year data. Our team determined that maintaining student achievement for students with disabilities will be a school-wide focus for the 2023-24 school year. The math pass rate over the last 2 measurable years has improved considerably for students with disabilities, from 36 to 88%. The English pass rate for students with disabilities over the last several years also continues to improve. Following the 1920 school year, our scores represent a decline in progress for both science and history overall. Virginia students are assessed in science and history as needed to meet graduation requirements, which can lower the total number of testers in some courses. All students must fulfill the requirement of testing at least once in science during high school. Students who pass World History 1 at the middle school level fulfill their history SOL requirement and do not have to sit for further history testing. Our teachers are working hard on synthesizing assessment data to strengthen Tier 1 instruction in both content areas. History teachers are now working with students on alternative assessments or state-developed performance tasks. Therefore, for the first goal, Staunton River High School will improve or maintain the overall student achievement through improved results of students with disabilities by decreasing the failure rate by 10% throughout all departments. To address weaknesses in the performance gap for students with disabilities, teachers have been working tirelessly to remediate unfinished learning. Teachers use assessment data, observations, or learner profiles to group students with similar needs for targeted instruction or additional support. All departments use a combination of face-to-face classroom or pull-out instruction for remediation. In the history department, students complete alternative assessments or state-developed performance tasks in class or through remediation. Our special education teachers have common planning with their co-teachers to ensure the success of their students by using formative assessments and data tracking to know precisely the needs of each student for joint support. Our SOL classes also have protected planning to track data trends on their common assessments. Our lead teacher and ITC collaborate with departments to provide professional development on instructional strategies. They have offered Teacher Toolkit Thursdays, PD on the potty flyers in all staff bathrooms, and PD in the mailbox each month, and shared strategies at faculty meetings and newsletters. Our teachers have conducted peer observations and shadowed a student to reflect on their most effective classroom strategies from students' perspectives. Teachers are provided with collaborative feedback to strengthen instruction. Identifying and supporting the needs of struggling students with universal screeners, focused learning walks, and flexible grouping will be the first step towards improving outcomes and closing knowledge gaps. Our team then focused on the dropout rate. The dropout rate has decreased to 13 students, or 5.91%. This is Tier 1 for the 2022-23 school year. The Staunton River High School faculty will work to decrease the overall student dropout rate from 5.91 in 2022-23 to 5.0 or below during the 23-24 school year. This would be less than 11 students. The counseling department compiled a list of seniors in danger of not meeting graduation requirements at the beginning of their senior year. This list specifically tracks those students failing one or more required classes, needing verified credits, and needing CPR or CTE credentials. At the end of quarter one, 57 seniors out of 205 were in danger of not meeting these graduation requirements. This includes seniors in danger of failing to meet requirements for an advanced diploma specifically. Staunton River administration and counselors work with students, parents, and teachers to implement interventions. CTE teachers offer workplace readiness remediation for our seniors who are missing their CTE credential for a graduation requirement. At this time, all seniors have their CPR and CTE credentials, and now 37 seniors are in danger due to grades and needing verified credits. Remediation and scheduled grade recovery sessions occur during work release times and electives or courses not required for graduation. We will continue with pre-scheduled parent, teacher, student conferences to encourage consistent stakeholder communication. These are like speed dating format for 15 minutes for teachers to travel to tables of families and share targeted information about failing or struggling students. Last year, we had 37 conferences over 14 pre-scheduled days with 121 different classes represented. We next examined student absences. Chronic absenteeism is defined as missing 10% or more of the school year, regardless of the reason. 10% of 180 days is 18 days. In the 2022-23 school year, 19.23% of our students were chronically absent. The Stanton River High School stakeholders will decrease the chronic absenteeism rate to less than 15%, or Tier 1, for the 23-24 school year. Chronic absenteeism has become the most significant concern for several years. A fundamental requirement for academic success is to maintain regular school attendance consistently. The Attendance Committee identifies school-wide and individual truancy concerns. Examples include ongoing monitoring programs, data tracking tools, attendance incentive plans, or competitions like monthly perfect attendance awards, and personal parent phone calls. This committee is working closely with members of our community. The last area we reviewed affected all goals: a positive school climate in which staff and students feel a sense of safety and belonging, improves academic achievement, attendance, accepted actions, and engagement. We found relationship behavior infractions have been the most frequent discipline incidents our students experience. The noted specific areas for student support are disruptions, defiance, speaking to others in uncivil terms, discourteous mannerisms, absenteeism, and tardiness to class. The Stanton River High School stakeholders will decrease student out-of-school suspensions of repeat offenders by 10% through improved student behavior and school climate. Stanton River aims to provide a consistent, predictable, positive, and safe environment so students can focus on learning and participate successfully in school. We analyzed behavior data and implemented guidelines for a supportive and structured environment. We explicitly teach school-wide expectations and increase classroom system consistency. We continue to develop incentives to motivate students to meet these expectations with positive referrals and student recognition. The Forbes Academy meets all students' academic and behavioral needs. The alternative learning environment and in-school suspension has Forbes intervention design specialist staff available to address students with chronic behavior issues. Students frequently demonstrating disruptive behaviors will have Tier 2 behavioral support recommendations created. These include Tier 2 check-in, check-out with specific staff members, increased access to academic supports, and assigned peer mentors. For students who did not respond to Tier 1 and 2 behavior supports, Tier 3 interventions are created using functional behavior assessments and behavior intervention plans. In order to gather input, we explore concerns and solutions in our student and staff principal advisory committees. We organize teams or committees to implement ideas for student success. The Mental Health Matters team, with our Horizon Counselor partnership, strives to support students with various mental health needs to succeed and promote school wellness for staff and students. To foster and promote a friendly, welcoming, and caring community within Stanton River and the community, the Hospitality Committee offers a variety of activities and assists with special events. The Eagles Roost Room was added to for staff to encourage work balance. The Community Engagement Committee is designed to increase family participation at Stanton River. They and our PTSA are planning school and community outreach events engaging the community. Events have already been held to connect our students, staff, parents, and the community. Only some are shown here. We have had a paint, crochet, and college night, honored our alumni, and mentored our future alumni at feeder elementary schools. Our students are often in our community greeting elementary students arriving at school, beautifying our campus through painting and weeding, and supporting others. These are just some examples of our exemplary students. As I conclude this presentation, you can see we have areas to applaud and areas to improve. Our data-driven plans are intertwined to improve the success of our students. Thank you.
Any questions for Ms. Parker? Mr. Nelson?
Who's on the attendance committee? Is it consist of like parents and students?
It's a combination of our attendance secretary, our admin, and staff.
Thank you.
Mr. Daniels?
So this chronic absenteeism, this phenomenon has been around since COVID or before COVID?
It's definitely, the numbers have increased since COVID considerably, and that's nationwide. We're seeing the effects of that, so that is weekly something that we address. So absolutely, I think with us going online, the tendency is that kids think they can stay home.
So a false sense of security, I think, for some, that it's okay to stay home. And amazingly, as a country, we changed behavior and saying it's okay to stay home. One of the symptoms of COVID is no symptoms at all, so you can just stay home. But I think that every board member up here would say to all the students and to the parents, if you're feeling good, some days you just don't feel great to just get up and get up early. But it's highly important for your future that you come to school. There's a lot of opportunities out there for you if you show up. That's half the battle, is showing up. The other thing that I wanted to mention is on your goal 1 for students with disabilities.
Yes, sir.
The Teacher Toolkit Thursdays, was that offered to the entire staff or just SPED teachers?
The entire staff.
The entire staff. Was it mandatory or was just if
Optional.
optional?
Yes, sir.
What percentage of the teachers showed up for that or are showing up for it?
And quite honestly, it depended if they were not covering another class during their planning to be able to go. So I would say probably a small percentage, maybe 10 or so. All of the resources, if they were not able to go, are linked in an online website that our ITCs have created. So
Okay.
at any time, if they were not present because they were sick or they were covering a class, then they can access that
Okay.
material.
All right, cool. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your presentation. I really appreciate it, and congratulations for your 60th year. That's just amazing. And 10,251, I think you said, graduates so far. That's just amazing. I'm so pleased to see your math and your English scores, and I'm so pleased to have that school-wide focus on students with disabilities, and that, you don't have anybody in Tier 3, if I understood you correctly, with that, which is amazing. Thank you for that, because those students do struggle, and the school-wide effort to really improve their performance is very noteworthy. I am concerned about the science and the history, as you have noted you are as well, and I think some of the strategies you mentioned, as well as your data-driven focus on it surely will help. I mean, I think the data is going to, getting down into the weeds with that is really going to help you all out. So thank you so much to you and to your staff, and also to your students, because they're the ones that are working as hard as we are. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Ms. Jill?
So, Ms. Parker, congratulations on your math and English results.
Yes, sir.
That's
Thank you.
Always good to see. As far as the history results, and I know you mentioned you've got some work to do on that, what changes have you made with your staff as far as overall head count for history overall in the high school?
The number of staff?
Yes.
We had a teacher retire that we have added that position back so we could lessen the number of students in each of those classes. We also, our lead teacher happens to have a background in history, so she helps greatly with our World I remediations, and she's coming from that background. She can help our students. We have the existing staff. We didn't have a lot of turnover in that department, so that was good. And so we have some very strong teachers in that are starting earlier to remediate. With the performance-based assessments that they're working on, already we have seen a considerable trends with their quarter one. U.S. history has done a quarter one, and they scored in the 60% pass rates. So we were very hopeful. This is something new, and we're hoping that that is going to be successful for our students. It's new for all of our teachers, and they're learning as they're going, but they're pleasantly pleased with the results so far.
Good, 60%. That's definitely an improvement. When you covered your vision, when was that vision established?
I wouldn't know. That was our vision when I came in 3 years ago, so I'm
Okay.
assuming that is
So it's been in place for a while.
I would imagine so,
Okay.
yes, sir.
All right, thank you. And then my last question, and before I go to my last question, thank you for sharing the data around the total number of students over a 60-year. That's good numbers to have, and that's an achievement for Stanton River. So that's good numbers. As far as I saw your goals talking about underperformance and things that we're focusing on in those areas. Off script, can you tell us some of the things that you're doing to encourage your top performers to continue to perform well and to push them to the next level?
I think our teachers are a big part of that because they recognize consistently the achievements that our students are doing throughout school, whether it be in their extracurriculars, the awards that they're getting, the competitions that they go to in academics, Scholastic Bowl being one of those that allows them to showcase their talents and their intelligence and striving for that. One of the things we plan on doing that they had done a number of years ago, and our staff has brought it to our attention and our leadership team, is to watch the trends of our students who are passing their SOLs and making that a school-wide initiative that we are celebrating every time somebody passes and the number of students that pass, so that at every classroom and every around the whole school, everybody knows when somebody passes an SOL or does well. So we're hoping our one of our committees that we've established for that can start working on that before our May testing window, so that we can really get the buy-in, not only by the teachers for the excitement, but for the students to celebrate when the achievable of passing that SOL.
Any more questions?
Yeah.
No, ma'am.
Madam Chairman, I do want to
Okay,
mention
well,
something.
Well, Mr. Holbrook had said something
Oh,
first. and then-
That's all right.
You go right.
I was just wondering on the history, well, on all of it, are these are percentages or actual student numbers?
For,
Like 54, it says, pass rate.
that's percentages.
Percentage, okay. And it went from 54 to 12 from 18-19 school year to 22-23. Was it a decrease in the number of students with disabilities coming to school as well? Or,
It could have been a combination of both. I don't have the number of students that tested. That's just the percentage of what our pass rate was.
I got it.
So, like I said, with history and science, it's dependent on whether they need that test for graduation. So if they've passed it previously in World History World History 1, as you see, if that was in middle school, that's why it was not enough for us to measure.
I got it.
We don't collect that, we didn't collect that in these slides here.
Okay.
So the students in World History 2 that are testing, that number has gone down, and it could be dependent on the number of students that tested.
Okay. All right.
Ms. Harrison?
Yes, absolutely. I didn't want to leave without mentioning one thing that I saw in your presentation that I think is very noteworthy, is your efforts that your school's making in terms of helping with the dropout rates. I applaud you for that. Any effort that we can do and can make, programs that we can put in place, merely just a teacher talking to a student can go a long way. So I hope that you'll continue to work on that particular goal, and that we'll see fewer and fewer students, dropping out education is important, extremely important, so thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Thank you, Mr. Bliss. Thank you, Ms. Parker. Excellent jobs. Appreciate it. Okay, moving on to 2.02, membership projections. Dr. Bergen?
Yes, Madam Chair, as we have about 10 minutes until a hard stop for recognitions and public comment. I think in the next 10 minutes, we can at least get through part, if not all, of the presentation, and then come back maybe for questions afterwards. Tonight, Mr. Blankenship is going to be making his annual membership projections, and you'll notice he's going to focus mostly on kindergarten through 12th grade, which is perfectly appropriate since those are funded through ADM or average daily membership, where preschool is funded entirely differently. However, we're also including in our enrollment counts the pre-K numbers because those children certainly ride the bus and take classroom space and need support services. So I just wanted to make sure that you're noticing the difference between PK-12 and K-12 in his membership projections. So, Mr. Blankenship, we are ready for you when you are ready for us.
Okay. Good evening, board members. I first would like to thank each of you for your service. I started tracking and projecting membership in December of 2007. So for 16 years now, I've been using the process to provide numbers that are used in staffing, budget planning, facility use planning, and other reasons. So these numbers come from the fall student record collection that all schools submit to the Virginia Department of Education. On September 30th of each year, we count how many students we have, and we submit that to the DOE. By taking these counts and looking at increases or decreases between each grade level from year to year, you get ratios showing historical growth or decline. These ratios are applied to the previous year's membership counts to project future membership for 1 year, 5 years by division, or 5 years by graduation zone. Got to turn it on. So in looking at the numbers from fall 2023, in pre-K through 12, we had 9,061 students. And because the state funding, like Dr. Bergen said, is based on K-12 membership, we look at the number of students in K-12. That number for this past fall was 8,811 students. Last December, when I made these projections, I projected that we would have 8,825 students, so we came in 14 students below the projection. If pre-K funding remains the same, there should be 200 and, I'm just going to advance real quick, 260 expected pre-K slots. So that number would bring us to 8,948 students for next school year in pre-K through 12, and the number projected for K-12 is 8,688, which in pre-K through 12, that would be down 113 students, and in K-12 down 123 from this past fall. So in this table here, you see those numbers. We also have included capacity, and in looking at capacity, you look at building size, both square footage and classroom usage. The school board has had 3 facility/enrollment studies done in my time here, and each time they've offered different ways to calculate building capacity. Some of the methodology is provided for you in the actual PDF report that's attached in your board docs. I've listed these capacity numbers that we used in this report on the slide here by school. Building usage can change over time, however, and as an example, I attended grades 3 through 8 in the lower level, what is now Jefferson Forest High School. My wife taught in the learning cottages that were where the bus loop is now behind JF. And many Bedford County students attended classes in mobiles. When I first started, the Liberty Zone had K2 students, K through 2, in Bedford Primary. Grades 3 through 5 were in Bedford Elementary, which at that time was a city school. The Bedford Elementary Annex, which is the space that's now occupied by the Alternative Education Center, had the 6th grade in that downstairs at where the Alt Ed Center is now. And 7 and 8 was in the old Bedford Middle School, and Liberty High School had well over 1,000 students in grades 9 through 12. So some small schools have gotten big, and some big schools have gotten small. New schools have been added, and some schools have been decommissioned. So in figuring capacity on this slide, we used the projected enrollment of 2024-25 and divided that by the capacity number that we listed. We've also listed what the K-12 projections are and the pre-K-12 projections with the schools that have pre-K in them. You see in that last column on the right. The schools that are highlighted in yellow are schools that are recommended to be closed to zone transfers and non-resident students for 2024-25. 2 of these schools have capacity that are approaching or at 100%. The other highlighted schools are small schools that have grade level student totals that make the school difficult to staff with the current staffing standards and may not be able to take additional students from out of zone in all or some grade levels. On this slide, you see the membership projections by school for next school year. This is used in staffing. Also, I wanted to point out down at the bottom, the 3 grade levels that are highlighted are over 700 students in each of those grade levels. For comparison, back in 2008-09, all grade levels in the division were over 700 students. We had 7 grade levels over 800 students and 1 over 900 students. In the student membership forecast, you can see we've included your last 5 years totals from the fall record collection that I mentioned. You see there that we've gone down over time. The biggest decreases you see there in 2019, 20, 2021, 2020, 2021 year, where we lost 346 students one year and 210 the next. And then we kind of have leveled out and gone up even in 2022, 23. The projections down below are for the next 5 years in blue. We are projected to decrease in membership, a total of 295 students over the course of the 5-year period, which is a 3.4% decrease. Here's the table showing our actual 2023 by grade level student totals. You can see what I was talking about earlier, that 9 through 12 has over 700 kids in each grade level, but then as we go 8 back to kindergarten, you see those class sizes getting smaller, and the yellow gets less and less as we go down into 20, 25, 26, 27, and 28. The graduating classes that are leaving us are larger than the incoming kindergarten classes. And so with that, we project kind of a range of membership forecast. As you can see here on this line graph, the middle line of the green line is what we actually project. And then based on growth or continued or excessive other factors that may take kids out of our schools, you can see there that we can determine it could be higher or lower, and that's the blue and the pink line. All right, so I mentioned earlier that we do this by zone as well. These are your numbers from the forest zone for the last 5 years, and you see there that actually from 2022-23 to 2023-24, that zone actually grew by 26 students. Over the course of the next 5 years, we are projecting some decrease, about 60 students decrease, which is a 3.68% decrease. Here's a look at the grade level numbers in that far zone. You see there, we've also highlighted that a lot of these grade levels have student totals over 300, which kind of go away as we move on out. They get smaller and smaller grade level totals. This zone is one that we have seen some growth in, so as that growth is added in, we don't fudge the numbers up based on growth. These are actual numbers based on what's attending. So I guess I could say that if we do see increased growth with all the new housing developments, these numbers could go up. This is just another forecast with range for the far zone. You see the green line is our projections, and we could actually see a little bit of growth there with the blue line or some decline. Liberty Zone.
Mr. Blankenship?
Yes, sir.
Let's pick up with Liberty after we jump and do
Okay.
the recognitions, please. Dr. Bergen, you want to lead it off?
Yes, Mrs. Borak is ready to lead us through student and staff recognitions.
I am. Madam Chair, Vice Chair, and Dr. Bergen, will you please come forward to greet our students and staff? All right, the group of students and staff being recognized tonight are members of our Junior Reserve Officers Training Corps, or the JROTC program, which has gained a well-deserved reputation for its dedication to fostering leadership skills, academic excellence, and community engagement. The JROTC cadets can be seen at a variety of events in and outside of Bedford, such as providing assistance for programs at the National D-Day Memorial and other programs sponsored by community organizations dedicated to veteran recognition and assisting with special events such as Centerfest, Special Olympics, and the Bedford Christmas Parade. Also, as you saw tonight, the cadets have been presenting the colors at school board meetings since September. In addition to their noteworthy support of the community, they also regularly compete in state and national competitions. Most recently, the air rifle team was the only Virginia JROTC program to qualify for the Best of the Best air rifle match in Hickory, North Carolina, where they placed in the top 25%. In recognition of their civic service, the American Legion Post 54, located here in Bedford, recently recognized the cadets and their leadership with a special proclamation from Bedford County Board of Supervisors and Bedford Town Council. And we would like to show our appreciation tonight as well. So please join me in congratulating the JROTC cadets. We have Anna Payne, Jacob Tinsley, Adrian Warner, Valerie Warner, and Jaded Whited. And all of this could not be possible without their highly qualified and exceptional leaders, First Sergeant Lenny Hutton and Lieutenant Colonel Matthew Payne. And they have their proclamation as well that they were given, so you guys can see it. Congratulations on all your accomplishments, and thank you for your service. Susan, can you scoop just a smidge? There we go. So you can see your head. There we go. All right. 3, 2, 1. All right. Congratulations. Thank you, Sergeant. So I think Mr. Hill would like you to stay up there, Ms. Kirby and Mr. Berger.
Ms. Hairston and Dr. Mealy, if you'll join us, please. So tonight, on behalf of the Bedford County School Board, Bedford County Public School Board, we wanted to publicly say thank you for your years of service and your commitment to our community and to our schools. We have 16 years of school board experience accumulated between the three of you, and it has been a pleasure. I will have to say that sometimes we did not always agree, but we were able to serve our students, our staff, and our families, and as well as our communities. But we want to give you these clocks to represent your time that was well spent.
Nothing to tell now.
But again, on behalf of the board, thank you so much for your commitment to our community and to our school board. Thank you.
Thank you. Now everybody can keep track of the time. Thank you all very much. Appreciate that. Okay, we're going to move on now to the public comment. The public comment portion of tonight's agenda is limited to 40 minutes. Speakers are asked to state their name and voting district. The school board is here to listen to your comments, but will not engage or respond to speakers during this 40-minute period. Please remember that this is a public meeting and that we expect all speakers to refrain from any foul, profane, abusive, or hateful language during their comments or at any time while in attendance during this meeting. We also ask that speakers keep their remarks objective and about the school in nature. Please keep all comments limited to matters related to the public schools, and any comments that are harassing or amount to a personal attack against any identifiable individual, whether board member or staff or student, or having the potential to cause unnecessary delay or disruption to this meeting are prohibited. This is a public meeting for public matters. If a speaker is not present when their name is called, we will proceed with the next name on the list. An individual who has not signed up to speak may not substitute for that time slot. Individuals will have 4 minutes to address the board. An alarm will sound when an individual has 30 seconds remaining, and a second alarm will sound when the allotted 4 minutes have expired. When this second alarm rings, please discontinue speaking and allow the next person in line to come to the podium. Should you be unable to finish your comments, please send or give them to Mrs. Johnson, and she will give them to board members. And we also ask that you please do not adjust the microphone at the podium as it has been positioned for optimum audio quality. Okay, our first speaker this evening is Christina Childress.
Good evening. I'm Christina Childress. I'm the president of the Bedford County Education Association, and tonight we just wanted to say thank you to the outgoing board members for their years of service to the school division. Mrs. Harrison, I'm not sure if you remember, but you were actually one of the staff members when I was a student at Stanton River Middle School a couple minutes ago. Even as preteens, we could always tell that you were a person who cared about the welfare of students. Middle school students are hard to love sometimes, but we always knew that you cared. And I know that same compassion carried over not only into a long career as an administrator, but it has shown up time and time again as you served on this board. My goal is to make you cry.
Yes, and you are accomplishing that.
For your consistently demonstrated genuine concern for staff and students in Bedford County, we thank you. Dr. Mealy, as your District 1 constituent, I just want to personally thank you for advocating for staff and for students as you served on this board. Your dedication to research and data analysis, to listening to stakeholders and then researching even more, this is a rare mindset. Your fire and passion to fight for what you believe is best for students and staff are qualities that will be missed. The two of you, Dr. Mealy and Mrs. Hairston, know what it's like to be in the trenches. We as educators appreciate someone who understands what that's like and what it's like to care for our own children, but to desperately care for everybody else's children just as much as our own. You two get it, and you've lived it for decades. You will be missed. The only thing that I think you've failed miserably at is retirement. So you should go have some fun. Mrs. Kirby, you have served on this board the longest, and you will be truly missed. Your common sense approach to problem solving, your vested interest in school zones that haven't always received as much fanfare as they should, and your willingness to listen to any and all viewpoints are qualities that are not easily replicated. We know you will continue to be involved in the educational priorities of the school division, and we look forward to seeing which door God opens next for you. Thank you, ladies, for your selfless service. Know that we appreciate your hard work.
Thank you. Thank you for the kind words, Ms. Childers. Amy Sneed.
Good evening. I promise Ms. Childress and I did not collaborate when we wrote our speeches, but they're going to sound very similar. My name is Amy Sneed. I'm with Moms for Liberty. Moms for Liberty advocates for the rights of parents to direct the upbringing and education of their children. We are nonpartisan, grassroots advocacy group. We have over 300 chapters in 48 states and over 130,000 members nationwide. Those members encompass every race, religion, political affiliation, and sexual orientation. We are parents who fight to defend our parental rights. That is what unites us, and we remain laser-focused in that mission. Tonight, we would like to show our appreciation for the members of the board who are attending their last meeting, at least on that side of the table. All three of you have served our community during unprecedented times. While we have not always seen eye to eye on issues, we have always treated each other with mutual respect. Some of us have even campaigned alongside each other outside this very building in the freezing cold rain for opposite candidates. We have disagreed on policies and decisions for our community, but treated each other with kindness and respect. It's a quality that our world needs desperately right now, and one I have always appreciated. I wish more people could see and know that. On a personal note, one of you served as our son's principal for many years, and we've shared a lot of laughter, prayers, and tears together. We are very thankful for your investment in our children. On behalf of our chapter, one of you stood out as a leader in the parental rights movement. In the fall of 2021, when only 3 board members were voting in favor of parental rights with regard to masking, you stood unwavering in your commitment to that. We cannot say enough to thank you, along with the other board members who stood beside the hundreds of Bedford County parents. When some board members exited out the back door of the school board office after meetings, you met with us in the parking lot. There were often upwards of 100 parents outside of those school board meetings when the meeting room was full and we were at capacity, and we met outside. You have voted in favor of every parental rights-minded policy since that time, and we are incredibly grateful. You have consistently listened empathetically, viewed both sides of an issue when making decisions, and been a constant force in the rights of parents to make decisions in the best interests of our own children. It's very difficult to thank a specific board member without using her name. I was trying to follow your rules, but I don't want to make you gavel me out of a board meeting on your last night. We look forward to seeing how you continue to serve our community in the years to come. As the new board members are sworn in tomorrow morning, we wish each of them the very best. Enjoy the holidays with your families and be ready to get to work in January. We have an amazing education system here in Bedford County, and we look forward to seeing what new heights our students will reach in the coming year. Thank you to all of you. Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays.
Thank you, Ms. Sneed. Okay, I have open slots for any additional speakers. Would anyone like to speak? Yes, ma'am. Did you want to speak? Okay. Going once, going twice. Okay, I will close the public comment portion of tonight's meeting. And now we will pick back up with the Liberty Zone.
Okay. As we did with the Forest Zone, we've got the last 5 years of the Liberty Zone shown here. You can see that really it's kind of leveled out in the Liberty Zone, but the interesting thing is, here we go. We've actually gone up a little bit from 2022 to 23, 26 students higher. Liberty Zone is kind of about like Forest Zone in terms of we're projecting them to stay fairly steady, lose 60 students over the course of the next 5 years. It's about a 3.68% decrease. We see here that there are no more grade level student totals over 200 in the Liberty Zone. And just last year, we had a couple that were, I think, either above or projected, but there's no yellow on the chart anymore. And you can see there that class sizes have just gotten smaller. This is the line graph that shows you our projection. It's fairly flat with the green line. Could be some growth, could be some decline, but we're looking at probably just maintaining the levels that we're at now in the Liberty Zone. Stanton River Zone. Over the last 5 years, it's gone down quite a bit. 76 students lower from 2022 to 2023. And we are projecting that to continue over the course of the next 5 years. 179 fewer students, decrease of 6.8%. On this, you can see we do have some class sizes or grade levels that are above 200 students. In the next couple of years, that gets less and less over time to the point where we're seeing it a lot smaller from K through 8 in 2028-29, and that's why we are seeing the decrease there, the smaller class sizes. And here's the graph, the line graph on the Stanton River Zone. Pretty sharp decrease at first and then kind of a leveling out over time. And we have time for questions.
Any questions for Mr. Blankenship?
Yep.
Okay, who wants to go first?
If I don't recall, with the New London Academy situation, Mr. Holbrook, the day we visited, was there any room for, like, I guess we could actually have more capacity?
There was a few rooms there.
Was it 2, if I'm not mistaken?
I believe it was.
Is that something we can revisit?
In terms of closing the school to zone transfers or in terms of?
The capacity number.
Yeah, those capacity, like I said, those capacity numbers they've come from studies in the past.
Okay.
I mean, we can put more kids in the classrooms and say, you know, the classroom could hold more kids. We can look at the space as it's being used now. I know some of that space was used some of the day and not all of the day.
Yeah, and I think that's, yeah.
Like they had a class in there that was maybe pullouts for reading and math, maybe, and then they had another one that was being used
I think
for
it was an
something
art
else.
class.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's correct. So, yeah, I mean, we can look at that. I do think, though, that in terms of the capacity, you know, if we change that and make it at, I don't think it's going to go down below like 90% capacity, which would still probably prompt us to want to close that school to zone transfers based on the fact that we know right across the road, they've cut a bunch of trees down and they're going to put some townhomes in.
Right.
And we don't have anywhere else to send those kids because, I mean, they're right next to the school. And the New London zone has grown quite a bit in terms of housing, and the houses that are being built are new family, you know, young families moving into them with young children that are going to be going to elementary school there. So those capacity numbers are what they are. You know, we look at them and say, that's what's on paper. We probably could fit some more kids in there with using buildings creatively. I know that has happened in other, like I mentioned in the past, we've had kids stuck in annexes and everywhere else over time just to have room for kids, and we've had mobiles. So that is something that we could look at.
Thank you.
I'm going to ask a couple questions. It's kind of a tale of two zones, I guess. So you look at TJ, Forest Elementary, New London, and even Otter River. You've got a lot of schools that are getting up there in capacity, and that's because that's where the growth is. That's for the elementary school level. If you look at the middle school and the high school in the FAR zone, there's capacity there. We have capacity there. So the elementary schools are the ones that's the issue. I appreciate your numbers. I think you're on the money. I think you're playing it right down the middle, as you should. I do think that, you know, according to the, you know, what the county is projecting, that's where the growth is going to seem to happen. So if anything, it's probably going to go up. Maybe this will spark Mr. Hill. He's very familiar with the area. But with those percentages, I mean, we're going to run out of some room there. So I think for staff and our committees, we need to get very, very, very creative on what we plan on doing. And we got to think outside the box, you know, things that we may never have even thought of. I think we need to put every idea out there and say, we're not going to do that. That's an interesting thought. We need to consider this. But, you know, I don't know how much it would be to build a new school, but that is not something that I'm willing to entertain at this point for that zone without exhausting, looking at every single option that we have. So that's what I'll say about that zone. Then you get over to some of these other schools here, and so the Stanton River zone looks like it's a 9% decrease, something like that, over the next 5 years. You've got Stewartsville Elementary, it's at 49%, and it's 292 kids, probably dropping to 275. Just thinking out loud, and maybe we need Mr. Hagler for this. In the next couple of years, for our CIP needs at that school, I guess funded and unfunded, how much in CIP needs do we have at that school?
For Stewartsville?
Yeah.
It is slotted for HVAC.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's 2 years out.
Mm-hmm.
So $2 to $3 million for that project. On a larger scale, there were some projects that are not slotted in the next 10 years, but very, very needed. And it was identified that was a school that needed a major renovation. That's where you're looking at wiring, plumbing, and, you know, across the board, even, you know, the walls and stuff. And talking to my maintenance staff, there are some concerns there that renovation is going to be needed eventually. And when you're talking renovation, you're talking $20 to $30 million.
20 to 30 million?
You got to bring it up to, you know, all the new codes, rewiring and stuff. So we don't know how significant that would be. It depends on, you know, what are you touching in that building.
And
But it is one of our older
the second you
schools.
disturb something.
When you start getting into renovations, it's not just an HVAC for $2-3 million maybe, or a roof. You're talking about really looking at all the guts of the school and what needs to be done. any masonry, anything that's going on in the school. So it was on the list that was presented on CIP in the past as one that was identified that was needed by previous consultants. So it's not on the short list for the next 10 years. It wasn't on the short list of the 5 projects that the board wanted to see done that required borrowing, but it is one of the schools that had renovation, and there are a couple more like that. They're just not scheduled any particular year.
All right, thank you. And Mr. Blankenship, as far as we know, there's not projected any developments or anything else happening right around those schools there in that zone, right?
No, sir, there's no major developments.
Okay.
There's been a few smaller single-family home developments in the south side, but nothing really in those zones.
Yeah, this is just me speaking here. We've got a lot of money that needs to go into that school, and not a great deal of kids, and it seems like some of the other schools around there could absorb it. My point of saying that is you have to look at assets and liabilities, and are we putting money that we don't have into that school potentially? And that's quite honestly money, $20 million. You divide that by the kids, you're talking about $75,000 to $100,000 per kid that's not going into actual improving their grades and giving them a better future. So I've heard people in the community say we love our community schools, and we do, but I think we love the kids in the community more. And I think that we need to assess that. If we found gold worth $20 million tomorrow, I don't know if we should put it in that school. I know the middle school where all the kids in the zone will go to needs renovations, and I think that would be a better use of money. I just think our committees and our staff, we need to look at all options and consider this moving forward to make sure the limited resources we have, we are spending it wisely. I'm not about to ask the Board of Supervisors for $20 million for that school, because I would guarantee that the taxes would have to go up significantly in an effort to pay for that. I'm not prepared to ask for that. So that's just a statement, but any other questions, I'm good.
Any more questions? Down this way?
I've got a couple of statements.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I know you like to go last.
Oh,
so
sorry.
That's why I was making sure. Okay.
All right. So I know we've talked about this in the past, where we take a look at out-of-the-box ideas for Forest Zone. I'm in complete agreement with Mr. Daniels. We've got to figure out how to get more kids in the spaces that we have today. I know I had asked for a study 6 months, 8 months ago maybe, that showed me what combining some of these schools and the resources would do with required headcount or FTE. So I want to make sure that hasn't been forgotten, because I think that's something that we need to be looking at to say, if we were to take 2 elementary schools that are close and do a K through 2 and a 3 through 5, sort of like Bedford Primary, Bedford Elementary are set up, what efficiencies do we run by doing that with those 2 schools? Do we decrease the number of FTE required while still maintaining our class sizes? I don't know. So I just want to make sure we're still looking at that as we continue this discussion. Mr. Hagler, I want to make sure I'm stating this correctly, but along those lines of what Mr. Daniels is saying around, if you look at Stewartsville and the percentage, I want to make sure I have the estimated cost per year for us to run a school based on, staff requirements, electricity, water, everything else. And I remember you saying something around $750K.
It's different per school. So for the community and for the school board that's present, we've had school closures in the past, and I had to estimate the cost and what would kind of go away from the reoccurring costs. I will say on the CIP, that $20 million was a number from 5-6 years ago.
Oh.
It depends on how wide that is and how much you do. It could be lower than that or bigger than that, depending on what you renovate in the school. So I don't want anybody get that idea that we've got a study on that. We don't. It was just per square foot and what the state cost. The state gives us a per square footage renovation cost, and we just multiply by the square footage. I think it's gone up a little bit since 4 or 5 years ago. And answering your question, the reoccurring costs in our operating budget per school, typically the teachers go with the kids.
Correct.
aides go with the kids. And there's probably a little bit of inefficiency because of bus routes. You might have to run some more. They can't, because of distance. But typically, when you close a school, the costs that go away that are recurring is the principal, guidance counselor, librarian, nurse, some custodian, some clerical workers. When you add all of that in, also nutrition workers. Some of those will go, but not all of them. Probably in the neighborhood, $700,000-800,000 when you also factor in decreased electrical and utility cost. That doesn't include CIP. So each school's different depending on how big they are and the staffing. So a much smaller school wouldn't be as much. That's just a rough estimate. I haven't looked at any school. I haven't done an analysis. We'd have to move the students and then see how much staff would go with this, and I could get a harder number. But I just have not done a detailed study on any school like that since the other ones were closed years ago.
Okay.
But in the neighborhood, that's a guess that it'd be in that range.
Thank you. And Mr. Blankenship, I just want to validate all of the data that you have studied and that you had prepared to give to us is here. So nothing was scrubbed and said,
No, no.
okay, so everything is here.
Everything is here, yes. Like I mentioned, we don't add in anything for projected growth. Now, the county does let us know that the planning commission is meeting on different developments. As Mr. Daniels asked, there's none really in the south side.
Okay.
The majority of those developments that are large are in the forest zone. So we do not add in any extra students for that, but as they do come into our schools, it plays out over time. So if we see increases, for example, at Forest Elementary this year, next year the projections will probably indicate that we saw growth over this past year. We're going to see more growth in years to come.
Okay. So, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but I want to make sure, as I'm looking at these numbers, Forest Zone's going from 3847 to 3692. So it's still a decrease. So does that put us in alarm of we're going to need more space? I mean, because this 3692 does not include any current approved or future approved field sites. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So maybe I need to get
Yeah.
a sidebar with you because I want to understand, we've seen significant growth in Forest just over the last 6-7 years that I've been in Forest, but
Well, we're graduating classes of 700, bringing in smaller classes. Our high schools and middle schools are getting smaller. Our elementaries, however, are certain ones, because of where the developments are going to grow. And in particular, like the Forest Elementary in New London, as I mentioned, there are developments coming in there that are offsetting any decrease. We're getting more kids into those school zones. So overall, you see that zone kind of holding steady because of what we're losing off the top, kids graduating and smaller class sizes coming in. We're getting supplemented by some kids moving in these new developments. So it's kind of going to level off at that. But I do think that certain schools will, and their zones will, and that's why we had talked in the past about potential redistricting. Certain schools will be pushed for space in the next 2 to 3 years.
Okay.
After that, it may level off, but they may continue to build. And I think that's, like I said, I've been notified by the Planning Commission of 2 new developments. One would be in the TJ zone, and I believe the other's in the Forest Elementary School zone, of townhome units of at least 50 or more coming, that could be approved and built over the course of, you saw how fast they're putting up, Weston Village and Forest, so.
okay. Thank you.
Any more questions? As always, thank you, Mr. Blankenship.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item 3.01, discussion of PPEA.
Yes, Mrs. Kirby, so, board members, you're well aware that the school division received an unsolicited PPEA for improvements to the canopies and the auditoriums here at Stanton River, as well as to the Liberty High School campus. and for a gymnasium at Bedford Primary. And over the last several meeting cycles, we have been cautious not to share too many details of the unsolicited PPEA, so we didn't want to jeopardize our application for a literacy loan. We were waiting for clarification from the VDOE about the literacy loan application process, and we just received that clarification last week. And so I'm very pleased to be able to share with you that we can unseal that PPA without jeopardizing that process. The board is free, if you wish to do so, to form a committee to evaluate that proposal, define the scope of the project, and to begin negotiations on a contract. I'll now turn this discussion over to Mr. Hagler, who would like to discuss some of those next steps in this process.
Yes, long awaited. Glad we can start moving forward. I'd like to, first of all, say it's not that we were awarded a literary loan, but it's not going to jeopardize the process because we've applied for it. Now we can move forward and go ahead and start discussing that. So I'm glad we're able to do that. I have clarified with our attorneys also that as we move into discussions, we're moving into negotiations with a firm that put in a proposal. Those would be closed to the public because it's proprietary, confidential information we're dealing with until we have I'm not loud enough? Until we actually have a contract. So that's, we would move forward with just basically board members and staff as we go through there. Just making it public clear about that there is still confidential information in there until there's actually a contract. So as soon as the board's ready, I'd like to get our staff and board members together and kind of show the proposal, share that. I can share it with all of you. Once again, it's confidential, but a couple of board members to come in and join the staff. I'd say the PPA process is a little bit different. So whoever's going to do this, it's really for the long term because it's a design. They're designing as they go along. So there's decisions that are going to be made. Once you make decisions to negotiate and move forward with the PPA, as they start designing as you're going along, you're making choices as you go along. Yes, we want that. Well, we don't want to do that. Let's save some money and do something else with that. So it's going to be probably a 2-year commitment to see this all the way through, and meetings, maybe once a month to come in and meet with the contractor and the designers as we go through to guide through this process. Not that board members have to do that, but it would be nice to have members with the staff going through that process. So we're at your disposal as far as soon as you want to get a meeting. I'd like to go ahead and get it scheduled very quickly so we can kind of negotiate, define the scope, get a contract negotiated, and then actually get the Board of Supervisors to appropriate the money so we can try to get some work done this summer. So there's only one proposal. We advertised for 45 days as required. No other proposals came in, so it is Jamerson Lewis is the only PPA that we will be evaluating. I'd be happy to answer any questions in regards to that process.
Well, I'm gonna make one statement, and I know we need to get a committee going, and I know we want to get this off the ground. But you're also gonna have 3 new board members that may want to serve on that committee as well, coming on in January. So as far as appropriating a committee, or picking a committee, I think this board as a whole would be better off waiting until January to do that.
Absolutely. Yes.
Now, questions?
I just want to clarify, did we get information about the literacy loan?
The way it works is that you apply for it.
Right.
And actually, once we have designs, then we submit those to the state. Then they take your designs and your pricing and stuff to the state board, who then awards the literary loan. Simultaneously, I've gone after grants for this with the state. There's some grants out there. I have not heard word back on that, so I'm hopeful for that. Maybe we can get $2-3 million help with grants from the state on this because they've set money aside for that. So those 2 timelines are running right beside each other. But for the literacy loan, you're really not going to be awarded or go to the state board for that loan until you actually have detailed designs.
And there's, what,
ready to go.
$200 million available statewide?
I believe so. They award that out. They look at a lot of different factors. It would be beneficial to get that because you have really a 3% borrow rate on that, which is a lot better than the county could go out and borrow at right now.
Do we have a commitment from the Board of Supervisors at this point?
To put the loan in, I believe they had to approve that, and that was part of the process. So yes, they had to move it forward before we could put this in. They had to pass a resolution, just like this board, to proceed with the literary loan. For the grant, it wasn't required, but the county administrator and also the chair of the Board of Supervisors said they're invested in moving these projects forward. And so we had a letter from them, so that gives us some points towards that grant. So hopefully that gets us over the threshold and we get awarded that.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions down here?
No, thank you.
Any questions down here?
Yeah, I agree with just waiting it out, but I think with most of the committees, or all the committees that we have, there's 2 board members that are on there.
Correct.
And those are still public meetings, right?
Well, this would be negotiating, and so that would be closed to the public. I've
But
confirmed,
does that
I've
mean
had
only
discussions
2
with.
Does that mean we can only have 2 members on that?
No, you can have more members than
Okay,
that.
all right.
Yeah, that's not limited to 2. It's just, we might have to advertise that it's closed and people come, but we'd go into close right away until a contract's negotiated. The reason for that is if you don't come to a negotiated contract, all of their pricing and everything's out there for anybody to use. And if we were to rebid it, that would jeopardize their confidential data. So that's the reason.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll throw my hat in the ring for when we decide on this in January.
So I would like to give Mr. Hagler permission, if the board is okay, to go ahead and get these meetings set up for the week after our meeting of January 11th.
Okay.
So for that first committee meeting to be the week of the 15th through the 19th, time is of the essence.
Okay.
And so I would like to make sure that once we decide who's going to be on those committees the night of our first school board meeting in January, that you have your committee member meetings, or members, and you're ready to roll the following week.
Will do.
So, everybody okay with that?
I'm good with it.
I'm fine.
And for the rest of the board, I know the PPA kind of was sealed and, I had opened it and had to report some data to you. But as board members, I can provide the PPA so you can start reviewing it and looking at it. There's nothing against that. So it's just confidential. So I ask that you not share it out.
Any further questions?
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hagler.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 7.01, Program of Studies.
Yes, so the program of studies was presented at the November board meeting. We're bringing it back tonight for approval. There was a request at the board meeting for a detailed summary of the changes from the current program of studies to what is proposed for next year. We shared that with the board members via memo several weeks ago, and that summary is also attached for the public to this agenda item. And Dr. Woodford is available, as I am, to answer any questions you may have about approval of the program of studies for next year.
Any questions?
No.
Any questions on this way? Okay, being no questions, do I have a motion regarding the Program of Studies?
Madam Chairman, I propose that we accept the program of studies as presented.
Okay, I have a motion by Dr. Mealy. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Nelms. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, Program of Studies is approved. 7.02, the school calendar.
Yes, ma'am. Again, this was presented last month for the board's consideration, the 24-25 school calendar. And there was a great deal of discussion amongst the board that evening about the last day of school for all students. So we did make some adjustments to the proposal. We shared that with you via memo several weeks ago. The most significant change would bring the school year to a close for all students just prior to Memorial Day. And again, Dr. Woodford and myself are available to address any questions you may have before taking up a motion on approving next year's calendar.
Okay, any questions?
Was the changes communicated with teachers and staff and asked for feedback? I'm sorry if I missed that.
So it was sent to the PTA County Council to ask for some parent feedback. I know that was a concern that the board had last month. And then the calendar committee, again, I just informed them that we were looking for 2 extra days and here are my thoughts. And so I shared it that way. It was a pretty hard and flexible way to find 2 more days, but we did it, and I did get some feedback.
For the most part, the parents, they love getting out before Memorial Day. That was the feedback I got from them. They were concerned about having to start on a Monday. That is really, unless we got rid of teacher work days and we cut some of our holiday times, like Christmas, we have to start on a Monday to make it end right for Memorial Day. The only concerns, I think teachers were concerned that we were moving to a 2-hour dismissal for trying to do grades. But that's better than they've been getting, so they understood, and I think in the end, they also are appreciative that they'll get out before Memorial Day and can kind of end things on an even note. But the parents, the only concerns that I heard from the PTA County Council were more in the line of, we start so early in August, can we go after Memorial Day, like go into June? And I think part of what we discussed last month was the fact that we have our venue for graduation at the Vine Center, and that's just a hard venue to replace, and that's kind of the weekend we're locked into. So they had some concerns about just the heat and air conditioning on buses, which Mr. Hagler, when we're ordering buses now and leasing them, we're getting them with air conditioning so that we're replacing our fleet with air-conditioned buses, so hopefully to help that.
Any more questions? Okay, hearing none, I will call for a motion regarding the school calendar for 2024 to 2025.
Madam Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the 2024-25 school calendar.
I have a motion by Ms. Harrison. Do I have a second?
Second?
Second by Dr. Mealy. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The calendar is approved. 7.03, Internet and WAN RFP.
Yes, Madam Chair, there was a request for proposals that we issued back in mid-October for internet services as well as WAN or wide area network services. We received 2 proposals. Those 2 proposals were first reviewed carefully by staff, and then we had a Budget and Finance Committee meeting earlier this week, and we shared the findings of the committee with the findings of the staff committee with the Budget and Finance Committee. And it was the suggestion of the committee that we elaborate a bit for you why the administration is recommending that we award the bid to Shentel. So Mr. Hagler is going to provide a little more context for why we would be recommending what is not the lower of the 2 bids, Shentel. Mr. Hagler.
Yes, thank you. Unlike a low bid proposal that we solicit, an RFP is you have an evaluation process to look at many factors within the proposal. Cost is one of those, and we weighted that the highest. But we also look at technical merit, the proposal response, terms and conditions, upgrade options, references, and responsiveness and support for the network. It's a complicated thing when we're looking at this, so I want to give credit to Barry Sexton and his staff. They did most of the lifting on this and looking at the 2 proposals. There were 4 individuals that reviewed and scored each proposal separately. And after we were done, and I've put those on your desk at your place there for you to look at the different responses and how we weighted those. We looked at the current, if we were going to go with just what we have currently, how would we weight them? How would we weight the proposals if we upgraded? And then a combined average of all that. So in looking at it, the cost per month currently, our current vendor is Shentel, GCR, actually at a lower cost. But when you factor in some other things, when you looked at the proposal and evaluated it, responsiveness, Shentel owns most of their fiber. They do rent a little bit of fiber, but a lot of it they have already at our schools, whereas GCR rents all of their fiber. So responsiveness is one factor there. Technical merit, when you look at staff's time, if you switch a vendor, it's a rough summer. All the IP addresses and a lot has to be switched over. So that's why that's factored in also. But when I did an analysis, and on the last page, if you look at the last page, you have to really look into the details when you break down the cost. And there were a couple things that were not provided, standard in the GCR contract that is in Chantel. So when I broke those out and did an analysis, actually, Chantel is the cheaper of the options when you look at what our impact to budget is. So based upon all those factors, and also the grading, and which was in the RFP, which we told anybody that was going to put a proposal in that we were going to evaluate it. Chantel came out ahead of GCR in all 4 of the evaluations, and that's our recommendation, that the board approve us to start negotiating with Chantel and to get a contract up and running. This process also is, these services, most of these services, everything in Chantel's also is E-ratable, so we really only pay 20% of the cost. The other 80% is paid by E-rate. That percentage might go up to 90 that they pick up. We don't know that yet. That'll be determined later. But for, we recommend staying with our current provider, Chantel, for the next 5 years. And if the board has any other questions, if it's more technical in nature, I'll ask Barry Sexton to come up to the mic. But as far as the process, I probably can answer most of those.
Any questions for Mr. Hagler?
Just a statement that the $5,000 in savings is just not worth the risk of having schools be down and everything else. So my statement is that I agree with your assessment that we should stick with Chantel.
And as I said, when we took the first look at that, the savings on a per month basis, that's pretty significant. But when you actually factor in the E-rate and also the firewall that's in one proposal, not in the other, and the backup UPS battery, when you factor all that in that we'd have to provide out of our own pocket, our impact to our budget is actually cheaper with Chantel at the end.
There you go.
That's our analysis, and that's how we broke it down.
What percentage of the fiber route, you mentioned that GCR leases their fiber route. What
Yes.
percentage of that fiber route is actually Chantel fiber?
Chantel, I believe, has, out of 21 schools, 14, I think, Barry, correct me, 14 schools is Chantel's, and 7 would be Mid-Atlantic broadband.
Mid-Atlantic
And
broadband.
GCR would lease all of Mid-Atlantic broadband across the board.
So that's my question. So GCR would not lease any of Chantel's fiber?
I don't believe so. And actually, Chantel's looking at expanding to other schools and running their own fiber. And one of the ways that there was graded, I didn't have knowledge of this, but the IT staff is that the response time from the Mid-Atlantic is longer than Chantel and getting our schools back up and running. So when they have their own fiber and they're right here, they tend, if there's any breakage or any problems, they do respond a lot quicker, and we see our schools back online quicker.
And is the bandwidth equal?
Yeah, they had to give, when we solicited the RFPs, they had to give current 5 gigabyte and then 1 gigabyte increments upgrading and what that pricing would be. So it was apples to apples on that.
Okay.
And as the upgrades went in, the pricing got a lot narrower. So,
I actually have another question. Do we have, in my business, we have, high-speed internet, but, if you can't process credit cards because your internet's down, you're dead in the water.
Yep.
So we have cell backups and things like that. Was anything like that discussed? I know we have cameras and other stuff, so I just don't know how much we need or how much bandwidth you get from that. It's just something to maybe ask about.
As technology increases, so does bandwidth requirements. So that's why we wanted to look out into the future.
Right.
If we go from 5 gig to, up to 10 in the future because of cameras and other things that are gobbling up that bandwidth. So we haven't made a determination to jump up any higher as of right now. So we're monitoring our networks to see if we need to do that. I don't know if that answered your question. As far as redundancy,
Yeah, just the redundancy of backup.
there have been fibers that have been cut. Construction goes on alongside the roads. Sometimes you look to see if they have a loop. In some areas, it depends on when the fiber's cut. If it's cut within the last half a mile of the school, you're probably down until they get that fixed. But as far as a loop around, as far as the region here, I think both of them have, some redundancy if it's a major line cut. But, the closer you get to the endpoint, there's usually one line going in. So when our fiber's cut and our schools go down, I would say in both instances, they would be down until it was fixed. And we do have where we can call the school and on sales and stuff, but your internet connectivity or any testing would be down for that day.
Okay.
Any further questions? Okay, do I have a motion regarding the RFP for Internet and WAN, WAN.
Madam Chairman, I make a motion that we accept the E-rate proposal from Chantel.
I have a motion from Dr. Mealy. Do I have a second? Second from Mr. Daniels. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Chantel bid is accepted. Moving on to 7.04, sale of Edmund Street Park to the town of Bedford.
Yes, Madam Chair. So attached to this agenda item is a purchase and sale agreement between the school board and the town of Bedford for the sale of the Edmund Street Park, which is approximately 1.2 acres of nearly 6 acres owned by the school board. And it's, for the public who may not be aware, it's located adjacent to the School Division Bus Garage and Susie Gibson Science and Technology Center. The purchase and sale agreement has been reviewed a number of times, not only by this board, but by the town council. I see that Mayor Black is here with us tonight. The town council is very eager to acquire ownership of the park so that they can continue to make some improvements to the park. And some of the grant fundings that they wish to pursue require that they have ownership. In the sale agreement, it clearly stipulates that this park must be maintained as a park for not less than 25 years for the benefit of the community. So, we're had, again, many discussions about it. I think this is a great celebratory item for the community. They have this park, and through this purchase and sale agreement, it will continue to be a park for the community for 25 years.
Any questions?
Is the dollar amount of what we're selling, is that public or is that?
I believe it's in the document, and it's, I want to say it's $10. Mr. Hagler, do you recall from the document itself?
It's in there,
Yeah.
$10.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's public in the agreement, yes.
Yeah, that's why I was asking. I didn't mention the dollar amount before I asked. That's why I wanted it public.
Yep.
And then, Mr. Hagler, what percentage of revenue dollars that we take in on a yearly basis comes from the town of Bedford?
I don't have an answer for that. I can get that, I can try, ask the county fiscal agent and see if I can get some information on that. But
Not Bedford County, but the town of Bedford is
the
my
town residents, if I'm not mistaken, are taxed just like the county residents, and then the town assesses an additional tax on top of that. So, and so the town collects that tax for other services that they provide. They do not, none of that comes to the school system.
Okay.
So the town residents are taxed exactly the same as the county for school. It comes through the county. No revenue comes from the town.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Okay, do I have a motion regarding the sale of Edmund Street Park to the town of Bedford?
Madam Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the sale of the Edmund Street Park to the town of Bedford.
I have a motion by Ms. Harrison. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Dr. Mealy. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Before we go any further, Mayor Black and I have had numerous conversations over this, and he asked me on his behalf to thank the board for their passing of this, and I also would like to thank everyone too, because that ball diamond, as it's referred to, is very vital to that community. So I'm glad to see it will continue as a park. Moving on to 7.05, approval of policy updates presented at the November 9, 2023 board meeting. Dr. Bergen.
No further information for the board. Members of the public who are interested in what these revisions look like, this was presented last month. The complete red line versions are online attached to this agenda item. It's a total of 8 policies being recommended for some slight revisions by the board.
That being said, then do I have a motion regarding the approval of policy updates presented at the November 9, 2023 board meeting?
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we approve the policy updates presented at the November 9th, 2023 board meeting.
I have a motion by Mr. Hill. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Daniels. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The policy updates are approved. Moving on to item 8, superintendent's report.
Yes, Madam Chair, before we proceed with celebrating the accomplishments of our students and staff, I have several key updates I'd like to share with the board, beginning with this next slide.
Count on me to do it.
Earlier this month, we invited our local elected officials to visit our schools as part of the annual Take Your Legislator to School Day. As pictured on this slide, I was joined by Mr. Hill and Mr. Daniels in their capacity as this board's Intergovernmental Affairs Committee representatives in hosting Congressman Bob Good for a tour of Jefferson Forest High School. We first had an opportunity to have breakfast and an informal conversation with students from JF who serve on the superintendent's student advisory. On a related note, Mr. Hagler and I are looking forward to traveling to Richmond in early January for the annual VASBO conference. Governor Youngkin is slated to be the keynote presenter and will be sharing directly his proposed budget for the next biennium. Other significant presenters and panelists include Secretary of Education Gadira and State Superintendent of Instruction Coons. And agenda topics will include emerging issues and hot topics in public education, as well as an overview of what we might expect from the 2024 General Assembly session. I look forward to attending the conference and then coming back and updating you with whatever information Mr. Hagler and I learn. And speaking of hot topics in public education, just last week, the Virginia Department of Education held a listening event at Liberty Middle School. This was for anyone from our region to come and discuss accountability and accreditation. There were about 50 people in attendance. That included a half a dozen superintendents from the surrounding school divisions, as well as other division leaders, school board members, university leaders, principals, teachers, and parents. The main topic, as advertised, was the proposed separation of accreditation from accountability. As pictured on this slide, I would like to offer my sincere thanks to Chef Shoup and his students who prepared wonderful hors d'oeuvres for the attendees. For those of you who are not able to attend, I would strongly encourage you to review the information online and submit your written comments to the VDOE directly regarding your thoughts on the use of growth, readiness, and achievement measures in a school accountability model. And now let's continue on with celebrating the accomplishments of our students and staff. Beginning with our BCPS cross-country teams from all 3 high schools who ran off with accomplishments at the state championship. Congratulations to the Liberty High School girls team who was crowned state champs. Also, JF's Zoe Lamanna was individual state champion, and the JF boys team finished 3rd overall with Alex Jordan, Macon Smith, and Luke Gaylor all earning all-state titles. Congratulations as well to Jack Weddle from right here, Stanton River High School, who finished his season 8th overall in the state. Running's not the only activity in which our students have excelled. Liberty High School Performing Arts received many recognitions at the Virginia Theater Association competitions and were regional runner-ups with their performance of Masterpiece, with Haley McGuire Hernandez receiving Best Actor. As pictured on the right-hand side of this slide, Liberty High School's Future Farmers of America was recently recognized as a 3-star national chapter at the 96th National FFA competition, with the 6 students pictured here all being named All-American recipients. Congratulations to our Liberty High School students on these achievements. Stanton River High School's A-team students showed off their skills, receiving 3rd place at the 2023 Scholastic Bowl. They competed in 10 matches, hung in there for 6 hours to answer 200 questions. Also, as pictured on the right-hand slide, congratulations to our Stanton River Middle School cheerleaders who were invited to cheer at the ACC Football Championship game in Charlotte, North Carolina. Our secondary schools weren't the only ones showing off their superb skills this past month. The Fall Elementary Art Exhibition was held at the Bauer Center for the Arts. I'd like to thank the students and teachers for their participation from Goodview, Otter River, Boonesboro, Bedford, and Big Island. As we gear up for the holidays, I enjoyed participating in the annual Bedford Christmas Parade. Our school division was well represented with many of our students, including our high school marching bands and our JROTC cadets. As I do each month, it was my pleasure to surprise two of our staff members and recognize them as recipients of our Bedford's Best. Many thanks to Forest Middle School teacher Cindy Watson and to Savinia Rice, who safely transports students in the Liberty Zone, for their contributions to our students and community. Through the generosity of the Bedford Area Education Foundation, both of these individuals received a gift card and an exclusive and coveted Bedford's Best coffee mug. If you'd like to nominate someone because of the difference they make in the life of your student, please visit our website or social media channels and submit your nomination. Congratulations to our top 3 finalists for the Bedford County Public Schools Teacher of the Year. As pictured on this slide, Allison Baer from Stanton River High School, Jeannie Willis from Liberty High School, and Genevieve Weaver from Jefferson Forest High School. All 3 of these individuals, along with all of the other Teachers of the Year, are to be congratulated for their recognition by their peers. After a careful review of the letters of recommendation and other information in the packet and visits to all 3 of these individuals' classrooms, the nominating committee has chosen Genevieve Weaver. We were just there earlier today to congratulate Genevieve at Jefferson Forest High School. It was really a thrill to recognize her in front of her students. You can see them pictured there in the middle of the slide. The committee was just so very impressed with Genevieve's captivating energy and her attention to detail in meeting the very intricate needs of her special education adaptive students. Congratulations to you, Genevieve. We can't wait to cheer you on for the Region 5 Teacher of the Year competition. Last month, I joined students on a Bedford One tour. We went to Chapel Creek Farms and Little Otter Flower Farm. The theme of this trip was learning how to apply workplace readiness skills in agribusiness. The students enjoyed sampling fresh pressed cider, actually watching it pressed and then enjoying it, and then participating in some other farm tasks. Many thanks to our partners at the Bedford County Economic Development Office, the Economic Development Authority, and CVCC for their assistance in organizing these opportunities for our students. And speaking of Bedford County Economic Development, since our last meeting, a new townhouse project was approved. We had some discussion about this when we were talking with Mr. Blankenship. You see it pictured on the right-hand side. It is for some additional housing that will feed into Thomas Jefferson Elementary School, Forest Middle School, and Jefferson Forest High School. During the month of November, our students celebrated Native American Heritage Month to learn more about and celebrate indigenous peoples throughout history. This year's theme was Celebrating Tribal Sovereignty and Identity, and classroom lessons focused on crucial points in history surrounding the culture of Native Americans. Tonight, I would also like to offer my thanks to Mrs. Kirby, Dr. Mealy, and Mrs. Hairston for their service and dedication to the school division. I couldn't add any more to those beautiful comments from Christina Childress and from Amy Sneed, and thank you to both of those individuals for coming tonight and using our public comment time to recognize these 3 outstanding individuals. So I was thinking about this moment in the meeting. I found a quote by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who said, "Life's most persistent and urging question is, what are you doing for others?" And without question, the answer for these 3 individuals has been to serve their community and to help improve the lives of children. We thank you for your decades of service to Bedford County Public Schools. You will be missed. Lastly, here are 3 things you need to know. Tomorrow marks the end of the second 9 weeks and the first semester. Secondly, report cards will go home on January 10, which is the week following our return from the winter break. And lastly, all schools and offices will be closed from the 18th of December through January 1st. I would like to wish everyone who celebrates Christmas a very Merry Christmas, and everyone a very Happy New Year. For our staff and our students and our parents, please be safe in your travels. I hope you'll have time to rest up, relax, and rejuvenate, and we look forward to seeing you after the extended break. Madam Chair, this concludes my superintendent comments.
Thank you, Dr. Bergen. We'll move on to item 9.01, committee reports. We'll start from your end, Ms. Harrison.
Okay. Well, the Laurel School Board met on December the 6th, so that was just a week or so away, and it was a wonderful meeting. We focused a great deal on one particular topic, and that was the purchase of a bus. We've been talking about purchasing an activity bus for some time now, and so Dr. Lewis, who of course is the administrator of the school, had gathered up some information, some quotes, of course, for us to take a look at. And so there's going to be further discussion about it. I certainly think we're going to be moving in the direction of actually purchasing a bus for those students so that they can just be transported to various community activities and events, and it'll just make it a lot smoother for them to be involved in the community. So I look forward to hearing more about that as well. And also I want to just thank the Laurel School Board for just their wonderful camaraderie and my time serving on the board. It's just been quite just a jewel for me, having the background as a special ed teacher for several years. It was just nice being able to see those students in the school and progressing, and just lots of programs being offered and support to them. So I just really kind of felt right at home there with them. And I'm also so very grateful for that school's generosity, the kind words from all of the board members directed to me, and also the very thoughtful gifts that were given to me as well. So it's just been an honor serving on the Laurel School Board. That's all that I have.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Harrison. Dr. Mealy?
We had a finance committee meeting, but I think Mr. Hagler has covered all that, and the Roanoke Valley Governor's Schools does not meet again until January.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Holbrook?
The facility committee hadn't had a meeting since the last school board meeting, so I have nothing on that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Holbrook. Mr. Hill, for committees?
Yep. Intergovernmental Affairs, no November or December meeting. We'll pick back up in January. Central Virginia Gov School, we did meet last week. We reviewed the monthly financial report, looked at enrollment and tuition report. We also peeked at the calendar discussions for 2024-2025, which we do try to keep in alignment with the majority of the school systems that we serve there. We reviewed the partnership between Central Virginia Gov School and the University of Lynchburg, talked about student selection for 2024 and 2025. Internship update, all 73 juniors will be placed with an internship mentor, which is fabulous. And then our next meeting for Central Virginia Gov School will be March 6th. One thing that I wanted to mention from the Gov School, it was shared with us, an email from a student who had been through the Gov School, who, based on their studies at the Gov School, received a full ride to the Ohio State University and then went straight to med school. And just the comments and the fact that that student recognized the growth and what they got from the experience was well worth what we do on a daily basis and what that Gov School represents, not only in Central Virginia, but also in Roanoke as well. But it was just a great reminder to hear from our successful student of what had taken place and where they are in their journey. So that's it for me.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hill. Mr. Jones?
We did have a finance committee meeting recently, but Mr. Hagler took care of that for us. And then our next CT committee is in January.
Thank you very much. Mr. Daniel?
SEAC met yesterday. I was unable to attend, and they're debating the date for the next one, which will be, it's looking like it's going to be January 18th.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Daniels. Now we'll start down with you for comments.
All right, first off, I just want to thank Mr. Bliss and Ms. Parker for their presentations tonight. They did have nice presentations, but I think what I liked the best is that they were very, very comfortable answering all the questions that we had up here on the fly. They were definitely very knowledgeable about their schools, and I appreciate that. I like when people are really in tune, and they definitely exemplified that. I just want to say that this is the last time that all 7 of us will be up here on this dais. I have the utmost respect for everyone that puts themselves in this position. As we heard earlier, there's many ways to serve your community and the people that you care about. Being a member of this school board is certainly one. We do this because we want to see our children be successful. We do this because our future rests in investing in our children. The success of our county, the success of our families, the success of this nation rests on that too. Everyone up here takes on a lot. Phone calls and emails.
Constantly.
I mean, that was perfect. Phone calls and emails, events and meetings, plus all the hours of contemplating, just trying to make the right decisions. And all that while you're still trying to run your daily lives. Everyone up here puts themselves at some level of risk, too. Risk of losing friends and family, risks of personal attacks, and like our counterparts in Lynchburg, threats of violence. But we're here to do a job, not to advance a political career or put ourselves in the spotlight, but to serve. Some of us are leaving and others are joining. This board accomplished a lot, and I'm grateful to my friends up here, but there's more work to be done. So our year is ending and the new one begins. New beginnings for everyone. Big adventures, traveling, growing families, and kids stepping into adulthood. Lots to be thankful for. So I say to my fellow board members, thank you, Merry Christmas, and Happy New Year. I hope all the families, students, and staff have a great Christmas break and a Happy New Year. Let's really get after it in 2024. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Daniels. Mr. Nelms?
Well, I got to start with Dr. Mealy down there. A lot of people don't know, but we get along great in finance committee meetings. I just want to say thank you for, being that leadership that I needed during that finance committee meetings. You brought a wealth of knowledge, and just thank you for that. I'm going to miss it. Ms. Harrison, thank you for everything. The kind words all the time when you speak to me. And thank you for all the knowledge that you've passed on to me in the last 2 years we've been together. Susan Kirby, you're last on this list here. I just want to thank you just for always being a phone call away when I needed you. And as the young kids say, I'm so glad you always kept it 100 with me. Every time I called you and had asked you a question, you didn't sugarcoat anything. You kept it 100. You kept it straight with me. So I want to thank you for that. And then I just want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Thank you, Mr. Nelms. Mr. Holbrook?
Yeah, well, I'd like to say, serving on the facility committee with Ms. Hairston has been really good. I know we don't always see eye to eye on things, but we've always got along. It's been very cordial. And I believe she was my principal in middle school. I spent a few times in her office there, I believe.
One or two.
But, this is a tough job. It's a lot more than people see. It's not just one meeting a month. And it can take a toll on you. And I have enjoyed my time with you. And the same with Dr. Mealy. Like say, coming onto this board, we were definitely on different sides, I'd say, but, with the same goal in mind. And we've been able to get past that stuff and actually, get things done. And we absolutely need more of that in this world, this country, this county, just all around. And, Ms. Kirby has been, as Dwayne said, pretty much straightforward, very unbiased. She sticks with her value regardless. And this has been a very well-rounded board, and it's going to be different without y'all here. So good luck in your next venture.
Thank you, Ms. Chilworth. Dr. Mealy?
Yes. I first want to start with, I have a letter that an individual asked me to read to Ms. Harrison because that individual couldn't be there. So I'll tell you who that is after. It could go without saying that Mrs. Georgia Harrison is an incredible person, but I am saying it. As a school principal, I served in a support role for Ms. Harrison for 13 years until her retirement. Every time over those 13 years, I had a chance to support Ms. Harrison at both Bedford Primary and Otter River Elementary Schools, I felt as though my job was rewarding and that I enjoyed it. Always a willingness to listen, always a tone in her voice that made my call or visit feel welcomed and appreciated. Ms. Harrison embodies what an effective leader is all about. It showed in the faces of her staff just how cherished she was. One need look no further than 2 State Board of Education Distinguished Achievement Awards, 2 State Board of Education Competence to Excellence Awards, and the Governor's Award for Educational Excellence for proof of the impact Ms. Harrison has had upon Bedford County Public Schools. I'm grateful to call Ms. Harrison a friend, and the citizens of Bedford County should be grateful that Ms. Harrison signed up for a 4-year stint as a school board member so she could face and make incredibly difficult public decisions, face intense scrutiny no matter what side of an issue she was on, and field almost constant concerns from those she represented and those she did not. Not for a six-digit salary, for less than $100 a week. Thank you, Ms. Harrison, for your incredible and invaluable contributions. Now please get out there and go enjoy life. And that's from Ryan Edwards.
Thank you, Ryan.
I too want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. I hope you just eat everything that doesn't try to eat you first, and then you eat some more. It's just like a great holiday for wonderful foods. And I hope you just get the time to spend some time with friends and family and people that you care about. As I end my time in Bedford County Public Schools, I'd like to mention just a few people who were pivotal in my journey. I want to begin with Stewartsville Elementary School people because I was honored to work with these people during my tenure. I would say that Stewartsville, being the principal of Stewartsville Elementary School, was the best job I ever had. The staff, the custodians, the clerical people, the professional people, everyone worked so hard. We accomplished what many people thought was nearly impossible, and together moved a school from one of the lowest performing in Bedford County, I think it might have been the lowest, to the highest performing school. It was a highlight of my tenure here, and one for which I will forever be grateful. So I want to thank all of my staff who worked far beyond their contractual duties and always asked, what's good for our students, Dr. Mealy? I think that's a question we always need to ask, and this board needs to keep asking, what's good for our students? I also want to say that actually Ms. Harrison and Cherie Whitehurst were on the committee that interviewed me, and I'm not sure anyone else is still here that interviewed me originally coming. I just remember there were a lot of people in the room, and I remember looking from one end to the other. There were probably seriously 6 of these tables lined up filled with people. I was given the job as principal, and I was so grateful for that. Dr. Whitehurst taught me true servant leadership. She taught me how to be compassionate yet accountable with staff. She encouraged me to get my doctorate. She was a constant support for me, no matter what was happening, and I will be forever grateful to her. She took a chance on me. She didn't know me. I wasn't from the county, and she gave me that opportunity. And I appreciate Ms. Harrison being on that committee as well, and she was a little scary, I have to say. But also for, in the years we've known each other, becoming my sister, and in more ways than I can count. So, thank you. Jason Johnson. He taught me more about school boards than I think almost anyone. He's a dedicated advocate for students and a man I am proud to call my friend. I also want to thank Denise Gertzler. Thank you for taking care of Stewartsville Elementary and loving it as much as I did, and I still do. Thank you for continuing so many of the things we started that made us successful at Stewartsville and adding even more strategies to make it a place where our students can achieve to their fullest potential. I want to thank our central office staff here for all their hard work and everything they do every month for us. Especially, Barry's team. I know that you put in an enormous amount of work to get these meetings at our different high schools, and it takes an enormous amount of time, and thank you so much for that. I also want to thank the Sheriff's Department for being here every month. You're very appreciated. Please make sure that Sheriff Miller knows that I appreciated him sending people here all the time. Diana Johnson, you're going to miss me not reading the minutes.
Yes, I will.
But your work with us has just been amazing. I don't think I ever made a phone call to you that you didn't, you weren't so helpful. So thank you for everything and your kindness toward me and any help that I needed. I really appreciate that. There are many others I really probably should thank, but I can't because it would go on forever. But I do thank, if you touched my life and you know who you are, thank you for that. And thank you for touching the lives of my students at Stewartsville. But after 42 years in education, actually these 4 will make it 46, in the words of John Kennedy, it's time to pass the torch to a new generation, and that begins this evening. So I plan to continue to be involved in our community and to serve others as I am able. I want to continue to experience and learn about the wonder of flying, enjoy my children, my 2 little golden doodles, Freya and Aria, and of course spending lots of time with my husband, who showed me a girl from a small town from Long Island, that she could dream big and reach for the stars. And after 52 years of being married to my best friend, he's still my biggest supporter, other than my children, and the one that's helped me achieve all that I have done so far. Without him, I would not have finished college, I wouldn't have pursued a master, and I certainly wouldn't have completed my doctorate or learned how to fly, just to name a few. He was the one who encouraged me and pushed me to do those things. He helped me become more than I ever dreamed that I could be. So I wanted to publicly thank him for everything for the last 52 years. And I will miss seeing all of you, and I hope that sometime we may run into each other, maybe have lunch, make fun of somebody, have a joke, but truly thank you all for everything that you've done, and I know that you'll continue to do. Sorry, I'm Italian, you cry.
That's okay, I'm not guaranteeing you I won't, so it's all good.
Absolutely. Already gotten started.
Thank you, Dr. Mealy. Ms. Harrison?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So Dr. Mealy, I also have a letter that Ryan Edwards has written to you as well.
Oh,
So
gosh.
I'm going to see if I can get through this.
So we didn't know that.
No, we did not, not at all. So Dr. Susan Mealy is an incredible person. As a school principal, I served in a support role for Dr. Mealy for a decade. whenever I had the opportunity to support Dr. Mealy at Stewartsville Elementary, she genuinely valued my help and always treated me like a teammate. When I was tasked with building a business partnership program, Dr. Mealy volunteered Stewartsville and subsequently, through her own efforts, made that little school the star of the program. What I found truly unbelievable was when Dr. Mealy, past the age of 50, was with her already more than full-time job as a principal. She pursued and flew through a doctorate program. Superwoman. Look no further to her leadership abilities than her close work with the First Lady of Virginia, Dorothy McAuliffe, while serving at the state level as a member of the Council for Bridging the Nutritional Divide to combat childhood hunger throughout the state, as an example of the lengths Dr. Mealy would go to make a difference. Upon the deaths of both my mother and my father, Dr. Mealy purchased a service of eternal prayer for both of them, an amazing gesture like no other that I had received. The citizens of Bedford County should be grateful that Dr. Mealy signed up for a 4-year stint as a school board member so she could face and make incredible, difficult public decisions, face intense scrutiny no matter what side of an issue she was on, and feel almost constant concerns from those she represented and those she did not. And not for a 6-digit salary, for less than $100 per week. So thank you, Dr. Mealy, for your incredible and invaluable contributions. Now, please let this thing adjourn so you can get back out there, enjoying your life, and fly in the friendly skies. Thank you, Ryan. That's so precious. Well, what I'd like to just share is that it's just been an honor for me to serve as a school board member. When I think about my career and my desire to even want to go into education, and that started at a very young age. In fact, in my basement, where my dad had actually put a chalkboard up for me, and I had enough brothers and sisters that I could bribe them into being students in my classroom. And so that's where my career truly began, with my parents nurturing that desire and then doing all that they could to certainly encourage me by giving me that makeshift classroom. I'll never, ever forget it. But it's been an honor for me to serve as a member of this school board. And I just want to thank everyone. The list is long, so I'm not going to try to name everyone. But I just thank you for your support. And more importantly, for your faith in me. That meant a lot, doing some really difficult decisions and conversations that I had with a number of people, community members over the years. That support, that faith means a great deal. I too want to thank my family and my friends and the central office staff, all of you. We go back, way back, so many of you, you know, and I appreciate and the hard work that you do. I recognize and have always recognized your efforts and your dedication to our school system. And so I appreciate it, and I applaud each and every one of you. You know, I've always believed that the best way to positively impact the future of our community, I've always believed this, it's through a strong public school system. That's exactly what we need, is to have a strong public school system. And so with that, I'm so proud of what we've accomplished in my 4 years. Now, I certainly had some lofty dreams, and I certainly wanted to do a number of other things. But I've learned a long time ago that progress takes time. Change takes time. But you're to never give up. You're to always have the faith, and you're to believe that you can. And if you believe that you can, then you will. And there's no such thing as failure. You don't fail. You just learn from it, and you just get better. There's no failure. So I'm looking forward to, I guess my husband says this is going to be my true retirement. You're going to really be retired now, he says. But I haven't told him yet. There's still this part of me. It's just in my DNA. I think it's just who I am. It came from my father and his father and my mom and my ancestors. That I'm put on this earth to be of service, to better my community. So I'm not going to be able to just sit. That's just not in me. But I'm going to have some fun. I've got some places we're going to travel to, things I'm going to do. But I want you to know that I'm going to continue my voice for the community and for the school community. And I want to encourage the families, the parents, and the community to get involved. Get involved. Make your voices heard. Your voice means a great deal. And so it's important for you to get involved in the education of your children. You know, I heard about the absenteeism and all of that. That troubles me greatly, but it begins at home. And so the parents you must get involved in your child's education. You must be an active participant in it. And so while this is not really goodbye, I'm going to see you around. I'm going to still be very active in the community, but I want to wish everyone a very Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to each of you, and I want you to have just a blessed and happy New Year. So thank you all.
Thank you, Ms. Harrison. Ms. Hill?
All right. Last week, I was able to attend STEM night at TJ, and it was a tremendous turnout for STEM night. I did make a recommendation for them to reach out to Cindy Watson at FMS, who is just awesome for grant writing, as they were talking to me about additional needs that they needed. So shout out for both of those programs. Congratulations to Bedford County Teacher of the Year, Genevieve Weaver. My apologies for not being there, but I wasn't aware. But congratulations on that presentation today. Shout out to Brittany Nelms and Faith Eggleston for the B-Team Cheer ACC Football Championship game in Charlotte. Bedford Christmas Parade was awesome. I was able to go out with my family, and for the first time, my grandbaby, Ruthie, who was able to attend, and she slept most of the time, but we did enjoy it. It was great to see our schools and our community members represented. So I have to say Bedford did a very good job on the parade, and it was an awesome community event. Girls and boys basketball is underway, so if you haven't been to a game, definitely get out and do that. I know we talked about Teacher of the Year recognition. I just wanted to put a comment out there to make sure that we are planning for Teacher of the Year celebration and retirements this year to get back into the swing of things on that. And then I'm going to use some satire here as I go to thank board members. First, I will start with Dr. Mealy and Ms. Harrison. As I said earlier tonight, I do thank you for your service and your commitment to the community. Dr. Mealy, you mentioned passing the torch, and I do want to say thank you for passing that torch. And thank you for the reminder of the progress of the school board and the future school board and the decisions that we're making. I'm going to say this because, I know you guys have been in the school system for a while, but there's going to be some kids who remember your name, but it's because of being forced to wear a mask, or those missed state championships or scholarships with no sports. Sometimes we make decisions and it has impacts. And I don't want that to be forgotten because that still lingers in our community. Now, to Miss Kirby, who I call Kirby, We've been together 6 years, and the first 2 years was very interesting 2 years.
It was.
We disagreed on some things and went back and forth,
For near-
but I'll never forget the first conversation you had with me where you said, you know, we really do agree on most things. We just had to get to know each other. And I appreciate, because it's more than just two board members, you have become my friend. I appreciate the conversations that we've had. We've been on the small side of the, I'll say the minority side of the board, but we fought for what we believed in, and I think that made us stronger as not only board members, but community members, and it gave us a bigger voice, because I truly believe we represented our communities. Things don't always go like we hoped, but I do believe that our friendship will continue on. Our conversations will continue on, and I appreciate the business that we've been able to do for this school system, and I wish you much success. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Joe. Anything further?
That's it.
Okay. Okay, I was gonna do well with not crying here, but thanks for that. Thanks, buddy. I'm probably gonna be a little long-winded, but I got 8 years built up that I want to get off, so here we go. I know the words honor and privilege are used so much they lose their meaning when heard. But not to me when I say it. It has truly been an honor and a privilege for me to serve on this board for the last 8 years. And even more so to be elected, to be the elected representative for Liberty and Stanton River School Districts. Both schools mean a lot to me personally. I'd like to take a moment to thank Diana Johnson for all she has done to help me over the course of the years. She was invaluable to me and will continue to do a phenomenal job for this board. I would also like to thank Dr. Karen Woodford, Dr. Leanne Calvert, Dr. Josh Cornett for all your help. And I especially want to thank Mr. Randy Hagler. He amazes me year after year with his budget work, predictions, and amazing analysis. I've learned a lot from you, and I have the utmost respect for all of you. Most importantly, I want to thank my family. These nights are long, and sometimes I go home and my kids wonder where dinner is at 10 o'clock at night. So I'll be home now on Thursday nights to fix dinner. And they've never known a time in school where I've not been on the board. So, guys, that does not mean you can start cutting up. And it wouldn't be my turn for public comment if I didn't put in a plug for bus drivers. BCPS is still in need of drivers. Bedford County can't educate the children if they can't get them to school. Training will be provided. Please call transportation and find out details, and bring a friend with you. In my 8-year tenure, I have learned and experienced so much I would never have if I hadn't served on the board. I was on the original design committee for Liberty Middle School, was present when the bids were unsealed and went through the bidding process, broke ground on the project, toured as construction was going on, and proudly took my children to school when the doors were open to the students. I watched Liberty get its long overdue competition gym, seen Forest Middle School get its massive expansion, been able to share in joys of families and presenting recognitions here at board meetings, or attending graduations. And believe it or not, as bad of a public speaker as I am, I've even been a keynote speaker at several events. I've watched all new board members take a seat at the table and voting take the meetings to all 3 zones to make it easily accessible to all families. I've seen principals and administrators move up the ladder, been a part of accepting the resignation of a superintendent and hiring a new one, helped navigate the uncharted waters of a pandemic, worked tirelessly to try to get our student athletes back on the playing field and our students back in school and wearing masks in accordance with parents' wishes, not the governor's. One change I have heard rave reviews about is the addition of intervention design specialists. Teachers and principals both have told me numerous times how much they are used and the benefit of having them. They are not there to correct one's behavior, but to correct and teach the correct behavior. Albeit I didn't appreciate the way it came about after the entire board agreed we would not implement new positions or concept until the new superintendent was hired, and some chose to ignore that and move on it anyway. But it was a much needed and well-utilized addition. The dynamics of parental involvement has evolved as well. We would go for months without having public speakers to where now we have public speakers every month. I've seen silence from the podium to some instances borderline bullying. And I'm going to say that it was completely tasteless and uncalled for to take pictures of our students, post them on social media without parental permission, which is fought so hard for to obtain now, and start a rumor mill that there are litter boxes in our classrooms. I guess the message is that not all parents should be informed or have a choice. Only the chosen ones will get that privilege. One thing over the course of the years, I've often heard one question that was actually taken aback the first time I heard it, and that is, why should I pay taxes for the schools when I don't have kids in the system? To that, I say, remember, these children are our future. They will impact your life in some way and eventually be the ones in charge of running our county. The educational foundation they receive in Bedford County is paramount to their success. We are educating your future doctors, lawyers, bank tellers, chefs, auto mechanics, nurses, HVAC repairmen, firefighters, rescue workers, service members, and the list goes on. No career is possible without a good, strong educational foundation like that provided with Bedford County, or a good, caring teacher willing to go above and beyond to support their students. Over the years, I did a series on my school board Facebook page I called Alumni Accolades, highlighting successful Minutemen and Golden Eagles. They have gone on and continue to do great things, just as I know our current students will do. I highlighted Liberty and Stanton River alum because those were the two zones I represented. But also, too, I wanted to show a student did not need to live in the 24551 zip code to be successful in life. I've heard people tell me that I do need to be more careful with spending their money, their tax money. Please, don't forget, even though we may be elected to the governing boards that make the decisions about the budget and allocation of tax money coming in, we pay the exact same tax rate as everyone else. So we're not just spending your money, we're spending our own too. Minutemen and Golden Eagles are unlikely mascots for high schools. But if you look and see what each is, it is understandable why they were chosen, and their uniqueness adds to their being school representations for each high school. The National Audubon Society describes Golden Eagle as a magnificent bird that is about the size of a bald eagle, but a Golden Eagle is less of a scavenger and more of a predator. Regularly taking up prey up to the size of foxes and cranes. The Golden Eagle was important to many Native American tribes who admired the eagle's courage and strength, and who ascribed mystical powers to the bird and even to its feathers. Less of a scavenger and more of a predator naturally connotates courage and strength, just like the Native American tribes admired, and which fits the Stanton River community well. Now, not many people know this. Minutemen were a small, hand-picked, elite militia force which were required to be highly mobile and able to assemble in a minute's notice. The Minutemen were chosen for their enthusiasm, reliability, and physical strength. Chosen for their enthusiasm, reliability, and physical strength. A suitable fit for the LHS community. The word liberty in its own right is a distinction. Liberty and freedom are perceived as synonymous. I know there are many who have taken a stand to be freedom fighters, but the true definition of liberty or freedom is a state of being free within society from oppressive restrictions imposed by authority on one's way of life, behavior, or political views. I'm glad that my education and my children's education are public school educations. So much is learned in the school outside of the classroom as well as inside of the classroom. You learn to get along with a diverse group of people within those hallowed halls and classrooms, just as you will have to in real life. And I'm proud to say that in my tenure, I have sought to propose a compromise of both directions of beliefs. The correct answer has to be somewhere in the middle. I often reflect on the words of John F. Kennedy, and I challenge future board members to do the same. Let us not seek the Republican answer or the Democratic answer, but the right answer. Let us not seek to fix the blame for the past. Let us accept our responsibility for the future. Our schools are not the place for political battles, nor should our students and their futures be pawns in those battles. The Liberty Yearbook is called The Heritage. In case no one realized, I'm a proud Liberty alum and of my LHS heritage. My mother had 3 decades of Minutemen. My oldest brother graduated in the 60s. My other brother graduated in the 70s. I graduated in the 80s. And both my brothers are in the Liberty High School Athletic Hall of Fame. And both of my children graduated as Minutemen in the 2020s. Minuteman pride runs deep in my family. And as an added bonus, both of my nieces were class of 2008, 2010 Golden Eagles, and my oldest niece was recently inducted into the Stanton River Athletic Hall of Fame. Many great people have graduated from these 2 high schools and have gone on to extremely successful careers, making Bedford County Public Schools proud. I know in the course of its almost 60 years, Liberty High School has brought home 6 athletic state titles, and 2 of those were for women's sports. But these schools are struggling. The long overdue projects of the parking lots, canopies, and auditoriums will help immensely, but they need students. They desperately need enrollment. Right now, Liberty is able to maintain equal educational opportunities, but it is a major difficulty to do so, and don't know that that can continue. Right now, due to a low enrollment, teachers are having to do multiple lesson plans and class preps for different subjects per day, some as many as 6 per day, because of trying to afford the students all the opportunities we can muster. However, some of the teachers down the road only have to prep for 1 or 2 subjects per day for the same rate of pay. We are asking teachers at Liberty and Stanton River to do 2 to 3 times the work for the same rate of pay as any other teacher in the county. We expect them to be happy and stick around. That doesn't seem like an optimal employment morale booster to me. I know some believe that it is up to the county to develop other areas besides forest, but even if a new development were to come in, let's say offer 200 new homes in either Liberty or Stanton River zones, about half of those might have children that would attend the schools. And when they would attend, they would trickle in, and not all would be in a 4-year range that would fill the space. And that goes without saying of the delays and the number of years it takes to develop a subdivision to the point of building homes and adding time to fill those homes. We need students in those 2 schools now. Yes, it is up to the Board of Supervisors to oversee the development of the entire county. And yes, I know they don't build homes, but they do direct the county's Economic Development Authority as to where they would like to see growth. But that will take time. It is up to this board to make the necessary changes to help these schools and the students in the immediate future. The buck cannot keep getting passed down and around and fingers pointed at the other's responsibility. I've always said this and I will stick by this. Redistricting lines need to be drawn countywide. We cannot keep sitting around watching one school flourish and the other 2 struggle to the point of where the rumor mill wonders if it's the intent of Bedford County to close these schools because that is in the direction it seems to be going. Redistricting is not a popular idea, and it would take a mighty strong backbone to do it. But if this board is as fiscally conservative as it claims, redistricting is the most economical choice. There are 2 elementary schools in the Forest Zone that will need expansions to house the students. The Forest Middle School expansion costs more than the entire construction of Liberty Middle School, so to expand 2 elementary schools might be close to roughly $50 million. Instead, redraw the boundaries and share the wealth. If there is no disparity between the zones, then there shouldn't be any trouble considering there will be equal opportunities no matter where the student goes to school. And if there's that much of a disparity, no one is willing to do it, then shame on Bedford County Public Schools and those that run it. Dr. Mealy, Ms. Harrison, it has been an honor to sit here with you guys, and an honor to sit here with all of y'all. Thank you very much. None of the last 8 years would have been possible if I hadn't stepped out of my comfort zone and became involved in the effort to keep Bedford Primary School open 10 years ago, and a deep sense of caring for our students' future. My former colleague, Martin Leamy, would often use a catchphrase of get involved, stay involved. I can urge those listening and wanting to become involved or make the change, it is vital that you have your voice heard. I promise that just because I will not be seated at this table any longer, I will be active and continue to be involved and will continue to fight for our schools and our students. With that being said, do I have a motion to go into closed session?
Madam Chair, I make a motion pursuant to Code of Virginia 2.2-3711A12-1 to discuss the assignment, appointment, performance, disciplining, and release of contract for specific school board employees. 2, for the purpose of discussion or consideration of disciplinary matters concerning students enrolled in Bedford County Public Schools, being student number 062023-A.
I have a motion by Mr. Hill. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Nelms. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? We are in closed session. A motion to come out of closed session.
Madam Chairman, I make a motion that we come out of closed session.
Have a motion by Dr. Mealy.
Second.
By Mr. Hill. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are out of closed session. Ms. Johnson, would you certify the meeting, please?
Whereas the Bedford County School Board has convened a closed meeting on this date pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote and in accordance with the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, and where Section 2.2-3712D of the Code of Virginia requires a certification by this school board that such closed meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Now therefore be it resolved that the Bedford County School Board hereby certifies that, to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed in the closed meeting to which this certification applies, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered.
Yes. Yes?
Yes.
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 Okay. Do I have a motion regarding closed session?
Madam Chair, I would like to make a motion that we do an amendment to the superintendent's recommendation for student number 062023-A and allow the student to return to, no, I'm sorry, okay, amendment to the superintendent recommendation for that student.
I have a motion by Mr. Hill. Do I have a second?
Second?
Second by Dr. Mealy. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to item 12, approval of the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
So moved.
I have a motion by Mr. Nelms, heard him first. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Holbrook with the second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The consent agenda is approved. Now, for the last time, do I have a motion to adjourn this meeting, Dr. Mealy?
So moved, Madam Chairman.
Do I have a second, Ms. Harrison?
Second.
I have a motion with a first and a second. Any discussion? There better not be. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Meeting is adjourned.
We are adjourned.
Good job, good job.